Welcome to Emma ASMR. Tonight, I'm going to take you on a gentle journey to a place of complete peace and tranquility. So settle into your bed, adjust your pillows, find that perfect position where your body can fully relax, and let all the tension from your day simply melt away. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for just a moment, and then release it slowly through your mouth. Good. We're going to do that one more time together. Breathe in deeply, feeling your lungs expand, and then let it all go, releasing any worries, any stress, any thoughts that don't serve you right now. Perfect. Tonight's story takes place on a rainy evening, and you're about to discover a hidden garden sanctuary where time moves differently, where the world feels softer, and where sleep comes as naturally as the rain falling from the sky. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment when you first found this magical place. You've been driving for hours along winding country roads, watching as the landscape gradually transforms from busy towns to quiet villages, and finally to rolling countryside where the only lights are from scattered farmhouses in the distance. The sky has been growing darker throughout your journey, heavy clouds gathering overhead. And about 20 minutes ago, the first drops of rain began to fall. At first, it was just a gentle patter against your windshield, but now it's developed into a steady, rhythmic rainfall that creates a cocoon of sound around you. Your windshield wipers move back and forth in their hypnotic rhythm. Swish, 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 clearing away the rain just long enough for you to see the road ahead before the droplets gather again. The sound is soothing, almost musical, and you find yourself relaxing into the drive despite the weather. The radio plays softly in the background, but you're not really listening to it anymore. The rain has become your soundtrack, a natural symphony that seems to wash away all the noise of your everyday life. You've been searching for something, though you're not entirely sure what. A retreat, perhaps. A place to rest. A sanctuary away from the demands and expectations that fill your usual days. You stumbled upon a listing online several weeks ago. Just a brief description and a single photograph of a vintage caravan nestled in what appeared to be a garden, unlike any you'd seen before. The image captured your imagination immediately. There was something about the way the evening light filtered through the trees, the way the caravan seemed to belong so perfectly in its surroundings, as if it had grown there naturally, rather than being placed by human hands. The listing said simply, "Hidden Garden Sanctuary, Caravan Accommodation, Complete Privacy. The garden will find you when you're ready." That last line struck you as unusual, almost mystical, but instead of deterring you, it made you want to visit even more. You sent an inquiry, received directions that were surprisingly vague, just a general area and an instruction to follow the lane with the stone wall until you see the wooden gate. And here you are now, trusting that you'll recognize the place when you arrive. The rain falls harder now, drumming on the roof of your car with increasing intensity, and you lean forward slightly, peering through the windshield to make sure you don't miss any turnoffs. headlights illuminate the road ahead in golden beams that catch every raindrop, making them sparkle like tiny crystals falling from the heavens. The trees on either side of the narrow lane create a tunnel effect, their branches reaching overhead, heavy with leaves that glisten in the rain. You've left your phone in the glove compartment, deliberately disconnecting from the digital world for this journey. There's something liberating about it, about trusting your instincts and these simple directions, rather than relying on GPS coordinates and turn-by-turn navigation. It feels like the way people used to travel, following landmarks and intuition, allowing for the possibility of getting beautifully lost. The stone wall appears on your left, exactly as described, running alongside the road for what seems like several hundred meters. It's old, built from irregular stones fitted together with such skill that they've stood for what must be centuries. Moss grows in the crevices, and ivy climbs in places, giving the wall an enchanted appearance. You slow your car to a gentle crawl, watching carefully for the wooden gate, and then you see it, almost hidden beneath the drooping branches of an ancient willow tree. There's a gate that looks like it belongs in a fairy tale. It's made from weathered wood that has aged to a beautiful silvery gray, with decorative scrollwork on the hinges and a simple latch rather than a modern lock. Next to the gate, barely visible in the rain and the failing light, there's a small sign. You stop the car, leaving the engine running and the wipers swishing, and you can just make out the words carved into the wood: Garden Sanctuary. You are welcome here. Something inside you settles when you read those words. You are welcome here. How long has it been since you felt truly welcome somewhere? Since you felt that you could arrive exactly as you are, tired and seeking rest, without any pretense or performance. You get out of the car, and the rain immediately begins to soak through your clothes, but you don't mind. It's a warm rain, the kind that feels cleansing rather than uncomfortable. You walk to the gate, your footsteps splashing in puddles that have formed on the uneven ground, and you lift the latch. It opens smoothly, silently, as if someone has recently oiled the hinges in anticipation of your arrival. Beyond the gate, a narrow gravel path leads into what appears to be a tunnel of greenery. You can't see very far ahead because of the rain and the gathering dusk, but you can make out the shapes of trees and shrubs, and somewhere in the distance, you think you see a soft glow of light. You return to your car, drive through the gate, and then get out again to close it behind you. This feels important somehow. This act of closing the gate, of sealing yourself into this sanctuary, of leaving the outside world firmly on the other side. As you drive slowly along the gravel path, your car's tires crunching over the small stones, the garden begins to reveal itself in fragments. Even in the rain, even in the dimming light, you can sense that this is an extraordinary place. The path winds gently through what appears to be a deliberately wild garden, where cultivated plants and native species grow together in harmonious profusion. Lavender bushes heavy with rain bow their heads beside the path. Climbing roses scramble over arched trellises, their petals releasing sweet fragrance into the wet air. Tall grasses bend and sway in the breeze that accompanies the rain. The trees here are magnificent, old specimens that must have been planted generations ago. You pass beneath an oak that spreads its branches like protective arms overhead. Further along, a copper beech creates a canopy so dense that the rain barely penetrates beneath it. Japanese maples, with their delicate, lace-like leaves, seem to dance in the rainfall, each droplet causing the branches to bob and weave. The path curves to the right, following what you realize is a gentle slope downward, descending into a natural hollow in the landscape. As you round the bend, the garden sanctuary opens before you, and you have to stop the car for a moment just to take it in. You've arrived at a clearing, a circular space perhaps 30 meters across, surrounded on all sides by the lush garden you've been driving through. In the center of this clearing sits the Caravan from the photograph, but the image didn't do it justice. It's a vintage model, probably from the 1950s, with a curved roof and rounded corners that give it an almost organic shape, like a large seed pod that has settled gently onto the earth. The exterior is painted in a soft sage green that blends beautifully with the surrounding foliage, and someone has added window boxes beneath each window, overflowing with trailing plants that cascade down the sides. But it's the setting that takes your breath away. The Caravan is positioned at the edge of a small pond, its still surface now pocked and rippling with raindrops. Water lilies float on the surface, their white blooms closed for the evening. Around the pond, ornamental grasses have been planted in drifts, and even in the rain, you can see how they move and rustle, creating layers of texture and movement. A willow tree grows at the far side of the pond, its long tendrils trailing into the water, and beneath its shelter, you can see a small wooden bench. To the left of the Caravan, there's a circular fire pit made from stacked stones, with several Adirondack chairs arranged around it. Even though it's raining, someone has left a neat stack of firewood under a wooden shelter nearby, along with kindling and what appears to be a basket of fire-starting supplies. The thoughtfulness of this touches you. Whoever prepared this place for your arrival has considered every detail. To the right, a path of stepping stones leads to what looks like a small greenhouse or potting shed, its glass panels catching and reflecting what little light remains in the sky. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there are plants. This is a garden that has been tended with love and attention, where every plant has been chosen not just for its beauty, but for the way it contributes to the whole. You can see herbs growing in raised beds near the Caravan. Flowering perennials create borders along the paths. Climbing vines scramble up trellises and over arches, creating living architecture that changes with the seasons. Lanterns have been placed strategically throughout the clearing, hanging from shepherd's hooks pushed into the ground, suspended from tree branches, and mounted on posts. They're all lit now, creating pools of warm, golden light that push back against the gathering darkness. The effect is magical, like something from a dream or a half-remembered story from childhood. You turn off your car's engine, and immediately the sound of the rain becomes more present, more encompassing. It drums on the roof of your car, patters on the Caravan, splashes into the pond, rustles through the leaves of countless plants. It's not just one sound, but a symphony of rain sounds, each surface creating its own unique percussion. And beneath it all, you can hear the gentle trickle of water, and you realize there must be a small stream or fountain somewhere nearby, adding its voice to the composition. You sit in your car for a moment longer, just listening, just being present with this soundscape. The rain against metal creates a bright, tinkling sound. The rain against the pond produces deeper, more resonant tones. The rain filtering through leaves creates a softer, more diffuse patter. All of these sounds layer together, creating a wall of white noise that seems to insulate you from everything beyond this place. Through the rain-streaked car window, you see the Caravan door open, and a figure emerges, holding a large umbrella. Even from this distance, you can tell it's a woman, perhaps in her 60s, dressed in practical rain boots and a waxed jacket. She waves at you cheerfully, beckoning you to come, and you realize she must be the owner of this property, the person who welcomed you here. You grab your jacket from the passenger seat and open your car door, stepping out into the rain once more. The woman approaches quickly, holding the umbrella high enough to shelter both of you, and when she's close enough, you see her face clearly for the first time. She has kind eyes, the kind that crinkle at the corners when she smiles, and she's smiling now. A genuine expression of welcome that reaches those eyes and makes you feel instantly at ease. "You found us," she says, and her voice is warm, with a slight regional accent that you can't quite place. "I'm so glad. The rain made me worry the directions might be too vague, but here you are, exactly when you were meant to arrive." She doesn't wait for you to respond, just gestures back toward the Caravan. "Come, let's get you inside and dry. We can worry about your luggage in a moment. The most important thing is to get you out of this rain and into the warm." You follow her across the clearing, your feet squelching in the wet grass, and you notice more details as you walk. There are solar lights embedded in the ground along the path, creating a gentle glow that marks the way. The scent of wet earth and rain-soaked plants fills your nostrils, rich and loamy and alive. You pass by a herb garden and catch the sharp scent of rosemary, the sweet smell of chamomile, the fresh aroma of mint, all intensified by the rain. The Caravan grows larger as you approach, and you can see now that it's in beautiful condition, clearly restored with great care. The paintwork is pristine, the chrome fixtures polished to a shine, the windows fitted with curtains that glow warmly from the light within. There are personal touches everywhere. A wreath of dried flowers hanging on the door, a small chalkboard sign that reads, "Welcome, dear traveler," a boot scraper shaped like a hedgehog positioned at the entrance. The woman leads you up 3 small steps to the caravan door, shaking out the umbrella before closing it and leaning it against the exterior wall. She opens the door wider, and warmth and light spill out into the rainy evening. "Go on in," she encourages. "Make yourself at home. I've left some towels just inside, and the heater's been running for the past hour, so it should be nice and cozy." You step inside, and the first thing that strikes you is the warmth. It envelops you immediately, a gentle, comfortable heat that makes you realize just how cool the rain had made you. The second thing you notice is the smell, a mixture of beeswax candles, dried lavender, old wood, and something baking, perhaps bread or cake. It's the smell of comfort, of home, of safety. The interior of the caravan is even more charming than the exterior. Every inch of space has been used thoughtfully, creating a compact but complete living space that feels cozy rather than cramped. The walls are lined with wood paneling that has aged to a rich honey color, and they're decorated with vintage botanical prints in simple frames, each one depicting a different plant that probably grows somewhere in the garden outside. To your right as you enter, there's a small kitchen area with a 2-burner stove, a compact sink, open shelving displaying mismatched vintage crockery, and a mini refrigerator tucked beneath the counter. The countertop is made from butcher block wood, worn smooth by years of use, and someone has set out a tray with a teapot, cups, and what looks like homemade biscuits covered with a clean tea towel. Straight ahead, the caravan opens into a living space with a built-in bench seat that curves along the far wall, piled high with cushions and blankets in soft, muted colors: sage green, dusty rose, warm cream, soft gray. The upholstery is a vintage floral pattern that somehow manages to feel both nostalgic and timeless. Above the seating, windows look out onto the garden, though right now all you can see is rain streaming down the glass and the blurred shapes of plants and lanterns beyond. To your left, there's a sleeping area separated from the living space by a curtain that's currently tied back. The bed looks incredibly inviting, made up with crisp white linens, a thick duvet, and what must be half a dozen pillows of various sizes. A reading light is mounted on the wall above the bed, and there's a small shelf within arm's reach holding a selection of books, all of them well-worn paperbacks with titles you don't quite catch from this distance. The woman has followed you inside and is now handing you a large, fluffy towel that feels slightly warm, as if it's been sitting near the heater. "Dry off," she says gently. "There's no rush for anything. I'm Margaret, by the way. I live in the cottage just beyond the greenhouse, so I'm nearby if you need anything. But I promise I won't disturb you unless you ask. This place is yours for the next few days." You introduce yourself as you towel your hair, feeling the warmth slowly seep back into your body. Margaret moves around the small space with practiced ease, clearly familiar with every corner of the caravan. "I've stocked the fridge with some basics," she says, opening it to show you milk, butter, eggs, cheese, fresh vegetables, and what looks like a homemade quiche. And there's bread in the box there, baked fresh this morning. Tea, coffee, and hot chocolate in the cupboard above the sink. Help yourself to anything you like. She moves to the stove and fills a kettle from a large bottle of spring water. Let me make you some tea before I leave you in peace. Something herbal, I think. Chamomile and lavender, perhaps. Good for settling in after a journey. You nod gratefully, still taking in all the details of this extraordinary space. Now that you're standing still, you can hear the rain even more clearly. It creates a constant, soothing percussion on the caravan's curved roof, a sound that seems to fill the space without being overwhelming. It's the kind of sound that invites you to relax, to let your shoulders drop, to release the tension you've been carrying. Margaret lights one of the burners on the stove with a match, and the soft pop and whoosh of the flame igniting adds another layer to the soundscape. She sets the kettle on the burner, then turns to face you, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed in a comfortable, casual way. The garden has been in my family for 3 generations, she tells you, and you can hear the pride and love in her voice. My grandmother started it, just a small plot around the cottage at first, but it grew and grew. She always said that gardens are living things, that they have their own wisdom, their own way of knowing what they need. I've tried to honor that philosophy. The garden tells me where it wants new plants, what needs to be pruned, when to simply let things be. The kettle begins to make soft sounds as the water heats, gentle ticks and whispers that promise the whistle is still minutes away. Margaret continues talking, her voice calm and unhurried, the kind of voice that never rushes because there's nowhere more important to be than right here, right now. The caravan was my grandfather's, she says, glancing around with obvious affection. He bought it in 1957, used it for fishing trips and adventures. When he passed, I couldn't bear to part with it, so I restored it, updated the essentials while keeping the character, and placed it here by the pond. It seemed like the perfect spot. I thought maybe I'd use it as a studio or a retreat for myself, but then I realized it wanted to be shared. Places like this, they're meant to offer rest to whoever needs it most. You ask her how she knows who needs it, and she smiles, that same warm smile that crinkles her eyes. I don't choose, she says simply. The garden chooses. I know that sounds strange, but I've learned to trust it. When I put up the listing, I don't advertise widely or try to attract lots of bookings. I just put it out there into the world, and the people who are meant to find it do. Like you found it, which means you're supposed to be here. The kettle begins to whistle, a gentle sound rather than a shrill screech, and Margaret turns to prepare the tea. She measures loose herbs from a jar into a teapot, pours the boiling water over them, and sets a knitted cozy over the pot to keep it warm while it steeps. The scent of chamomile and lavender fills the caravan, mixing with the other smells to create an olfactory experience of pure comfort. I'll leave you to settle in properly, Margaret says, moving toward the door. But before I go, let me show you a few things. She walks you through the basic functions of the caravan: how to adjust the heater, where to find extra blankets if you need them, how the small bathroom works. Yes, there's a bathroom, tucked into a corner so cleverly that you hadn't even noticed it at first. It's tiny but complete, with a toilet, a small sink, and even a shower with a rainfall shower head. The hot water is solar powered, Margaret explains, so you'll have plenty, especially after a rainy day like this. Paradoxically, rainy days often give us the most hot water because the system is quite efficient. She shows you the lanterns, how to light them if you want additional ambience beyond the electric lights. She points out the wood-burning stove in the corner of the living area, currently unlit, but ready to use if you want the experience of a real fire. Though it's not cold enough to really need it tonight, she says. The rain is warm, almost balmy. But sometimes the ritual of building and tending a fire can be soothing in itself. Finally, she hands you a hand-drawn map of the garden, simple but detailed, showing the various areas and paths. If the rain stops and you want to explore, this will help you find your way. There's the herb garden, the rose walk, the meditation grove, the vegetable beds, the orchard, and the stream walk. Each area has its own character, its own mood. Visit whichever calls to you. She pauses at the door, one hand on the handle, and looks back at you with an expression of such genuine kindness that it makes your throat tighten unexpectedly. Rest well, she says softly. Stay as long as you need. Time moves differently here. Don't fight against that. Let it be a gift. And then she's gone, slipping out into the rainy evening with her umbrella, the door closing softly behind her. Through the window, you watch her walk across the clearing, her figure gradually becoming less distinct as the darkness deepens, and she moves beyond the range of the lantern light until finally she disappears entirely, and you're alone. Alone, but not lonely. The caravan feels like a living presence, warm and welcoming, and the garden surrounds you with its protective embrace. You pour yourself a cup of the herbal tea, the liquid gold in the lamplight, and carry it to the cushioned bench. You sink into the softness, pulling one of the blankets over your legs, and you sip the tea slowly, letting its warmth spread through you from the inside, while the heater's warmth surrounds you from without. The rain continues its steady drumming on the roof, sometimes louder when the wind gusts and drives the drops harder against the metal, sometimes softer when the wind eases and the rain falls straight down. You realize you've been hearing rain sounds in white noise machines and apps for years, playing them to help you sleep, but they were always recordings, always the same loop playing over and over. This is real rain, infinitely variable, never repeating exactly the same pattern, and your brain knows the difference. This is authentic, and something deep in your nervous system responds to that authenticity by beginning to unwind in a way it never quite does with artificial sounds. You set down your teacup and stand, moving to the window. The glass is cool against your fingertips as you touch it lightly, watching the rain create rivulets that run down the exterior surface. Beyond, the garden is transforming in the rain and the darkness. The lanterns create islands of warm light, but between them, shadows deepen and pool. Plants take on different shapes in the low light, becoming suggestions and silhouettes rather than clearly defined forms. The pond's surface is alive with rain, each droplet creating concentric circles that intersect and overlap with thousands of others, creating a constantly shifting pattern of ripples and rings. The water lilies have closed for the night, their blooms folded in on themselves, waiting for tomorrow's light. A frog begins to call somewhere at the pond's edge, a deep, resonant croak that carries clearly through the rain. After a moment, another frog answers from a different location, and then another, until there's a whole conversation happening in frog language around the water. You smile, charmed by this addition to the soundscape. The rain, the frogs, and from somewhere deeper in the garden, you can now hear an owl calling, its hooting soft and rhythmic. The garden is alive, even in the rain, even in the darkness. Perhaps especially in the rain and darkness, when the diurnal world sleeps and the nocturnal world awakens. You return to your seat and discover your tea is the perfect temperature now, cooled just enough to drink in long, satisfying sips rather than the small, cautious ones you were taking before. The chamomile and lavender taste the way the garden smells, herbal, floral, earthy, and clean. You drink it slowly, mindfully, paying attention to each sip, to the way the liquid feels against your tongue, to the warmth traveling down your throat and into your stomach. When did you last take time to simply sit and drink tea? When did you last do anything without simultaneously doing 3 other things, without your phone in your hand, without your mind already racing ahead to the next task? You can't remember, and that realization sits heavy for a moment before the rain seems to wash it away. That's not who you are here. Here, you can be someone who drinks tea and watches rain and listens to frogs. Here, you can be someone who has nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. The caravan's details continue to reveal themselves the longer you sit. You notice a small shelf of books near the door, different from the ones by the bed. These are practical volumes, field guides to birds, wildflowers, and trees, a handbook on weather patterns, a journal of garden observations written in someone's careful handwriting. There's a vintage radio on a high shelf, the kind with a dial and probably AM and FM bands. There's a collection of board games and puzzles in a wicker basket. Above the kitchen counter, you spot a small chalkboard where someone has written in flowing script what the rain brings: renewal, growth, permission to rest, music for the soul. You read it again, more slowly. Permission to rest. When was the last time you gave yourself that permission? When was the last time you didn't feel guilty about resting, didn't feel like you should be doing something more productive? Your gaze travels to the sleeping area, and you realize how tired you actually are. The journey, yes, but more than that. You're tired in a way that goes deeper than one day's exhaustion. You're tired in the way that accumulates over months and years of never quite resting enough, of always being in motion, always being available, always being on. You finish your tea and stand, stretching your arms overhead and feeling vertebrae pop gently as your spine realigns. You should probably get your luggage from the car, but the rain hasn't let up, and the prospect of going back out into it feels like too much effort right now. Margaret mentioned towels, and you find them exactly where she said, a whole stack of them in a cupboard beside the bathroom, each one thick and soft, and in the same soothing neutral tones as everything else in the caravan. You decide a shower might be perfect, a way to wash away the journey and prepare properly for your first night in the sanctuary. The bathroom is indeed tiny, but it's been designed so cleverly that it doesn't feel claustrophobic. The walls are painted a soft white, and there's a small window that you can crack open for ventilation. The rainfall showerhead Margaret mentioned is larger than you expected, and when you turn on the water and wait for it to warm, you're pleased to find that the pressure is excellent. You step under the spray, and it's perfect, warm, abundant, steady. The water cascades over you, and you close your eyes, tilting your face up into it. The sound of water hitting your skin and the shower floor adds yet another layer to the symphony of rain sounds. You can still hear the rain on the caravan roof, can still hear it in the garden beyond. And now, this more immediate water sound creates an intimate foreground to that distant percussion. There's a shelf in the shower holding simple, natural products. Shampoo that smells like herbs, conditioner rich with botanical oils, a bar of handmade soap wrapped in paper that lists its ingredients in handwritten text. You use each one slowly, massaging the shampoo into your scalp with your fingertips, working the soap into a lather that smells like honey and oatmeal, and something green you can't quite identify. You stay in the shower longer than necessary, just enjoying the warmth and the water and the moment. When you finally turn off the tap and step out, reaching for one of those impossibly soft towels, you feel renewed. The mirror has steamed up completely, and you wipe a clear patch with your hand, seeing your own face looking back at you, flushed from the heat, eyes brighter than they've been in a while. You dry off thoroughly, then wrap yourself in one of the thick terry cloth robes you find hanging on the back of the bathroom door. It's enormous, engulfing you completely, and you cinch the belt tight around your waist. Your hair is damp, and you towel it partially dry, but you don't bother with anything more than that. There's no one to see you, no reason to put in any more effort than feels comfortable. When you emerge from the bathroom, the caravan feels even more welcoming than before. Maybe it's the contrast between the steamy warmth of the shower and the slightly cooler air of the main space. Or maybe it's just that you're beginning to truly settle in, to accept that this place is yours for the next few days. The rain continues, steady and patient, and you realize it's probably going to rain all night. The forecast you checked before leaving civilization had mentioned a large weather system moving through, expected to bring rain for at least the next 24 to 48 hours. Rather than being disappointed, you find yourself feeling grateful. Rain creates a kind of forced stillness, a weather-mandated excuse to stay inside, to be cozy, to do nothing but rest. You're hungry now, you realize. The tea and biscuits were lovely, but your last proper meal was hours ago, somewhere on the road. You move to the kitchen area and open the fridge, taking stock of what Margaret has provided. The quiche catches your eye, and when you lift it out, you find it still slightly warm, as if it was baked just before your arrival. There's a small salad in a covered bowl, dressed with what looks like a simple vinaigrette. Perfect. You prepare a plate, cutting a generous slice of quiche and adding a portion of salad. You find silverware in a drawer, cloth napkins in another, and you carry everything back to the cushioned bench. You arrange yourself comfortably, tucking your legs beneath you, settling the plate on your lap. The quiche is delicious, clearly homemade, filled with vegetables from the garden and rich, creamy cheese. The pastry is buttery and flaky, melting on your tongue. The salad is crisp and fresh, the dressing perfectly balanced between acid and oil. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, chewing thoroughly, actually tasting your food instead of just consuming it on autopilot while your attention is elsewhere. Between bites, you look around the caravan, really seeing it now that you've had time to adjust and settle. Everything here has been chosen with intention. There's nothing extraneous, nothing just for show. Every object serves a purpose, and yet somehow the space manages to feel abundant rather than sparse. It's a lesson in what enough actually means. Enough blankets to be cozy, enough dishes to be functional, enough books to have options, but not an overwhelming excess of anything. There's wisdom in this, you think, in knowing when you have enough, in not always reaching for more. The world beyond this garden is so focused on accumulation, on constant growth, on never being satisfied. But here, in this small caravan, in this hidden garden, satisfaction feels not only possible, but natural. You finish your meal and take your plate to the sink, washing it carefully with the biodegradable soap you find there, drying it with a tea towel embroidered with bees and flowers. You put everything away, wipe down the counter, and then you're faced with the question of what to do next. The evening stretches before you, empty of obligations. You could read. You could listen to the radio. You could work on one of the puzzles. You could write in the journal you brought with you. You could simply sit and listen to the rain. The last option appeals to you most. When was the last time you allowed yourself to do nothing? To simply exist in a space without consuming content or producing output. It feels almost transgressive, almost wrong, which tells you exactly how much you need it. You return to the bench, but this time you recline along its length, pulling pillows beneath your head, tucking a blanket around yourself. You're facing the windows, looking out at the rain-soaked garden and the pond. The frogs are still calling, their voices rising and falling in waves. The owl hoots again, closer now, perhaps perched in one of the trees at the clearing's edge. You let your eyes go soft, not focusing on anything in particular, just taking in the scene as a whole. The rain creates a kind of moving curtain between you and the garden, blurring the distinction between near and far, between solid and liquid. Everything seems to flow and merge, and you flow and merge with it, becoming part of the rainy evening rather than separate from it. Your breathing deepens naturally, matching itself to the rhythm of the rain. In with the sound of droplets hitting the roof, out with the sound of them splashing into the pond. Your body grows heavier, sinking deeper into the cushions, and you make no effort to resist this heaviness. You welcome it. This is what relaxation feels like, you realize. Not just the absence of stress, but the positive presence of ease, of comfort, of safety. Time passes, though you're not sure how much. The light in the garden gradually dims as full darkness settles over the landscape. The lanterns become the primary source of illumination, creating a scene that looks like something from a Victorian painting. Pools of warm light surrounded by mysterious shadows, rain falling through the glow like threads of silver. You notice you're becoming drowsy, that pleasant heaviness of impending sleep beginning to tug at your consciousness. Rather than fighting it, rather than forcing yourself to stay awake, because it's too early for bed or you should do something else first, you simply accept it. If your body wants to sleep, you'll sleep. That's why you're here, after all, to rest, to sleep, to recover. You rouse yourself enough to prepare for bed properly. You use the bathroom, brush your teeth with the toothbrush and toothpaste you find in your small overnight bag. Wash your face with cool water. When you return to the main space, you move through the caravan, turning off lights, leaving just one small lamp illuminated near the bed. The bed looks even more inviting now that you're truly ready to sleep. You pull back the duvet and slip between the sheets, which are cool and crisp against your skin. The mattress is firmer than you expected, supportive in all the right ways, and the pillows are perfect. Not too soft, not too firm. You arrange yourself on your side, facing the window, and pull the duvet up to your chin. The weight of it is comforting, grounding. You can still hear the rain, perhaps even more clearly now that the lights are off, and your visual sense is no longer dominating your perception. The rain on the roof, the rain on the windows, the rain in the pond, the rain in the leaves. You wake slowly, drifting up through layers of sleep like a swimmer rising through warm water. For a moment, you're disoriented, unsure of where you are. The sounds are wrong for your usual bedroom. The light is different. And then memory returns, and you remember. The caravan, the garden, the rain. The rain is still falling. You can hear it immediately, that same steady percussion that lulled you to sleep hours ago. It's changed slightly in character, perhaps falling a bit lighter now. Or maybe the wind has shifted direction, so it's hitting different surfaces. But it's still raining, and somehow this fills you with quiet satisfaction. You stretch beneath the covers, extending your arms above your head, pointing your toes, feeling your muscles lengthen and wake. Your body feels different this morning. Rested, yes, but more than that. There's a looseness in your shoulders that you hadn't realized was missing. an ease in your lower back that speaks to the quality of the mattress and the depth of your sleep. The light filtering through the curtains is soft and gray, the particular quality of light that comes on overcast, rainy days. You have no idea what time it is, and you realize you don't care. There's no alarm clock in the caravan, no schedule to keep, know where you need to be. You could stay in bed for another hour, or you could get up now. Either choice is equally valid. You decide to stay in bed a little longer, but you shift position, sitting up against the pillows and pulling the duvet up around your shoulders like a cocoon. From this vantage point, you can see out the window beside the bed, though the view is partially obscured by rain streaming down the glass. The garden is transformed by daylight, even the muted daylight of a rainy morning. What was mysterious and shadow-filled last night is now revealed in detail. You can see the individual plants now, can distinguish between different species and varieties. The grasses around the pond are bending gracefully under the weight of rainwater, their seed heads heavy and drooping. The willow trees' trailing branches create a curtain of green that sways gently in the breeze. Movement catches your eye near the pond's edge. A bird, you think at first, but then you see it's a rabbit, sitting perfectly still except for its nose, which twitches constantly as it samples the wet air. Its fur is darkened by the rain, plastered against its small body, but it doesn't seem bothered by the wet. It's simply existing in the rain, as natural as the plants around it. You watch the rabbit for several minutes, entranced by its stillness, its presence. Eventually, it hops forward a few paces, nibbles at something you can't see from your position, then disappears into a dense cluster of ferns at the garden's edge. The fact that wildlife feels safe enough to visit the clearing tells you something about this place. It's a sanctuary not just for humans, but for all living things. Your stomach rumbles softly, reminding you that you haven't eaten since last night's quiche. The thought of breakfast is appealing, and you finally push back the covers and swing your legs out of bed. The air in the caravan is cool, but not cold, pleasant against your skin after the warmth of the bedding. You pad across the floor in bare feet to the kitchen area, filling the kettle and setting it on the stove to heat. While you wait, you open the cupboard Margaret showed you last night and survey your options. There's a variety of teas, as promised, but also coffee, both regular and decaf, and packets of hot chocolate. You choose a black tea for this morning, something robust to help you fully wake. The fridge reveals even more than you noticed last night. There's yogurt, fresh berries, granola, eggs, bacon, and vegetables for cooking. There's butter and several types of jam, all in jars with handwritten labels. There's fresh juice in a glass bottle. Someone, probably Margaret, has thought of everything. You decide on something simple: toast with butter and jam, some of the fresh berries, and a cup of tea. As you prepare this modest breakfast, you find yourself moving slowly, deliberately, taking your time with each small task. Slicing the bread, waiting for the toaster to work its magic, spreading the butter while the toast is still hot enough to melt it, choosing which jam to try first, settling on what the label identifies as damson plum. The kettle whistles, and you pour the boiling water over the tea leaves you've measured into a mug. The scent rises with the steam, earthy and slightly astringent, the smell of wakefulness and morning rituals. You carry your breakfast to the table, a small drop-leaf affair attached to the wall that Margaret showed you how to raise last night. You eat slowly, looking out the window, watching the rain, listening to its constant song. The toast is perfect, the bread clearly homemade, dense and hearty, with a complex flavor that speaks of good flour and patient rising. The jam is sweet, but not cloying, with whole pieces of fruit that burst on your tongue. The berries are so fresh, they must have been picked recently, probably from the garden itself. The tea is strong and hot, and you cup your hands around the mug, enjoying its warmth. You're still wearing the robe from last night, and you haven't bothered with anything else. There's no reason to get dressed, no reason to present yourself in any particular way. This freedom feels luxurious, decadent even, though it's really just permission to be comfortable in your own space. When you finish eating, you wash your dishes and tidy the small kitchen. Then you move to the windows for a better view of the garden. The rain is definitely lighter now than it was during the night, less of a downpour and more of a steady drizzle. The kind of rain you could walk in without getting completely soaked, especially with appropriate clothing. The thought of exploring the garden is suddenly very appealing. Margaret gave you that hand-drawn map last night, and you retrieve it now from where you left it on the counter. The paper is thick and textured, the kind that feels expensive and important in your hands. The map itself is beautifully rendered, clearly drawn by someone with both cartographic skill and artistic sensibility. The clearing where the caravan sits is marked in the center, with the pond illustrated with actual tiny water lilies drawn in blue ink. From this central point, paths radiate out like spokes on a wheel, each one leading to a different area of the garden. To the north, according to the map's compass rose, there's the Rose Walk, a path lined with climbing roses trained over arches. To the northeast, the herb garden, where Margaret grows both culinary and medicinal plants. To the east, the meditation grove, a circular space surrounded by birch trees. Southeast is the vegetable garden, organized in raised beds. South is the orchard, with heritage varieties of apples, pears, and plums. Southwest is the stream walk, following a small creek that runs through the property. West is the wildflower meadow, and northwest is what's labeled simply as the folly, with no further explanation. Each area has been given a small illustration. Tiny roses for the rose walk, detailed drawings of lavender and rosemary for the herb garden, simple tree shapes for the meditation grove and orchard. The map is annotated with notes in flowing handwriting. Best in morning light near the meditation grove. Listen for the blackbird along the stream walk. Bench for reading in the rose walk. Secrets within by the folly. You study the map with growing excitement, already planning your exploration. The rain doesn't deter you. In fact, it makes the prospect more appealing. There's something special about gardens in the rain, when colors become more saturated, when scents intensify, when the usual visitors stay away, and you have the space entirely to yourself. But first, you should probably get dressed in something more appropriate than a bathrobe. You finally retrieve your luggage from the car, dashing out quickly with an umbrella you find by the door. The rain soaks your feet immediately, but it's warm rain, pleasant rather than uncomfortable. Your car sits exactly where you left it last night, already looking like it belongs here, like it's been parked in this spot for years rather than hours. You grab your suitcase and your backpack, then hurry back to the caravan, your bare feet squelching through wet grass and puddles. Once inside, you towel off your feet and legs, then dig through your luggage for appropriate clothing. You pull on comfortable pants that can handle being damp, a long-sleeved shirt, a waterproof jacket, thick socks, and your most practical boots. As you dress, you catch sight of yourself in the small mirror near the bathroom. You look different, you think. More relaxed, certainly. The tension you usually carry in your jaw is absent. Your eyes look clearer, brighter. Is it possible to look more rested after just one night's sleep? Or are you imagining it? You finish dressing and stand at the door, looking out at the rainy garden. The umbrella leans against the wall where you left it, but you decide against taking it. You want to feel the rain, want to experience it directly rather than shielding yourself from it. Your jacket has a hood, and that will be enough. You step out of the caravan, pulling the hood up over your head, and immediately you're immersed in the full sensory experience of the rainy garden. The air is thick with moisture and rich with smells. Wet earth, rain-soaked leaves, flowers releasing their perfume into the damp air. You can smell the herbs from here, even though the herb garden is some distance away. Rosemary and lavender, mint and thyme, all of their essential oils activated by the rain. The temperature is perfect, cool enough to be refreshing, but warm enough that you don't feel chilled. The rain patters against your jacket's hood, creating an intimate sound that surrounds your head. Droplets land on your face and hands, each one a tiny kiss of cool water against warm skin. You consult the map again, though you've already memorized the general layout. You decide to start with the herb garden, which is northeast of your current position. A gravel path leads in that direction, and you set off along it, your boots crunching on the wet stones. The garden reveals itself gradually as you walk. You pass through an area where ornamental grasses have been planted in sweeping drifts, their seed heads creating waves of texture and movement. Some are tall, reaching above your waist, while others are low and mounding. The rain has turned them all into glistening sculptures, each blade of grass holding dozens of tiny water droplets that catch what little light filters through the clouds. You pause to crouch down and examine one of the grass clumps more closely. The droplets cling to the narrow leaves, creating chains of spheres that look like nature's jewelry. You reach out and gently touch one blade, watching the droplets shiver and merge, growing larger, until they become too heavy and fall, splashing onto the gravel below. Standing again, you continue along the path. To your left, you spot what looks like a small bog garden, a deliberately wet area where moisture-loving plants thrive. There are hostas with leaves the size of dinner plates, their surfaces pocked with rain. Ferns unfurl in elegant spirals, their fronds creating layers of green at different heights. Ligularia displays its huge, rounded leaves, some of them purple on their undersides. A clump of irises, finished blooming for the season, sends up spear-like foliage. The path curves, following the natural contours of the land, and you realize the garden has been designed to work with the landscape rather than against it. Where the ground is low and naturally wet, water-loving plants have been placed. Where it's higher and drier, you see plants that prefer better drainage. This isn't a garden imposed upon the land, but one that has emerged from it, shaped by an understanding of what wants to grow where. The herb garden appears ahead, and even before you reach it, you can smell it. The rain has intensified every scent, and the air is thick with herbal fragrances that make you want to breathe deeply, pulling them into your lungs, letting them work their subtle aromatherapy on your mood and mind. The garden is organized in a series of raised beds made from weathered stone, each bed roughly circular and perhaps 2 meters across. They're arranged in a pattern that's both functional and beautiful, with gravel paths running between them wide enough for comfortable walking. In the center of the arrangement, there's a stone sundial, though it's useless today with no sun to cast shadows. You walk slowly from bed to bed, reading the small slate markers that identify each herb. Here's a bed devoted entirely to different varieties of lavender. English lavender with its classic purple spikes, French lavender with its distinctive butterfly-like bracts, a white variety you've never seen before. The plants are all blooming still, despite the season being late for them, and the scent is almost overwhelming in its intensity. The next bed contains cooking herbs, rosemary growing in a substantial bush, its needle-like leaves releasing their piney scent when you brush against them. Several types of thyme, some upright and some creeping, forming mats of tiny leaves. Oregano sprawling enthusiastically across its section. Sage with its fuzzy gray-green leaves, some varieties you recognize, and others that are new to you. You move on to a bed of mints, and here the marker warns. Contained for your protection and theirs. You smile at this, understanding that mints are notorious for taking over gardens, if not restrained. There must be a dozen different varieties here. Spearmint, peppermint, chocolate mint, apple mint, orange mint, and several others whose labels have been weathered into illegibility. Another bed holds medicinal herbs, plants that have been used for healing for centuries. Chamomile with its daisy-like flowers, echinacea standing tall on strong stems, calendula in shades of orange and yellow, lemon balm with its distinctly citrus scent. The marker here includes a note: for observation and appreciation. Please consult a qualified herbalist before using medicinally. You appreciate the care and knowledge that has gone into creating this garden. This isn't just a collection of plants. It's a living library, a teaching space, a resource, and a work of art all at once. You can imagine Margaret working here, tending each plant, knowing its needs, its properties, its personality. There's a bench at the edge of the herb garden, positioned to look back across all the beds, and you sit down despite the rain. The seat is wet, but your waterproof jacket is long enough that it protects you, and you don't mind anyway. You sit very still, just breathing, just being present in this space. The rain continues its gentle patter, and you notice how it sounds different here than it did at the Caravan. Here, surrounded by all these plants, the rain creates a softer, more diffuse sound as it hits thousands of leaves and stems and petals. Each plant receives the rain in its own way. The lavender's narrow leaves channel water down to the center of the plant. The large-leafed herbs like sage create tiny waterfalls as droplets collect and spill over their edges. The fine, feathery herbs like fennel catch the rain in their delicate structures, creating a mist-like effect. A movement catches your attention, and you look down to see a small toad hopping between the beds, its warty skin glistening with moisture. It doesn't seem aware of you, just going about its toad business, probably hunting for insects or slugs. You watch it hop across the gravel path and disappear under the dense foliage of the lemon balm. You sit for a long time, longer than you intended, just watching the rain fall on the herbs, breathing in their scents, feeling your own boundaries soften and blur, until you're not sure where you end and the garden begins. This is a kind of meditation, you realize, though you're not following any particular technique or tradition. You're simply present, simply aware, simply here. Eventually, you stand, your legs slightly stiff from sitting still, and you continue your exploration. The map shows that the meditation grove is nearby, just beyond a hedge that you can see from here. You follow a narrow path that leads through an opening in the hedge, and you find yourself in a space that takes your breath away. The meditation grove is a perfect circle, perhaps 15 meters in diameter, ringed by white birch trees. Their distinctive bark, white with black markings, creates a striking visual boundary. The trees are mature, their trunks straight and tall, their canopies forming a high ceiling that filters the rain into a fine mist by the time it reaches the ground. The floor of the grove is covered in moss, a thick, luxurious carpet in every shade of green imaginable. You've never seen moss this perfect, this undisturbed. It's like walking on the softest mattress, each step sinking slightly into the springy surface. You move slowly, reverently, not wanting to damage this extraordinary natural carpet. In the exact center of the circle, there's a single flat stone, roughly square, perhaps a meter on each side. It's been placed deliberately, clearly, and the moss has grown up around its edges, but not over it. The stone is dry despite the rain, protected by the dense canopy above, and you realize it's meant to be a sitting place. You approach the stone and lower yourself onto it, finding that it's the perfect height for sitting cross-legged. The surface is smooth, worn by water and time, comfortable against your body. From this position, you can see the full circle of birch trees surrounding you, and beyond them, through the gaps between trunks, you can see hints of the wider garden. But mostly what you see is the grove itself, this contained, perfect space. The moss creates a sense of profound quiet, absorbing sound in a way that makes even the rain seem distant. The birch trees stand like silent guardians, their white bark almost luminous in the gray light. A few leaves drift down from above, spiraling slowly through the rain-filled air before coming to rest on the moss. You close your eyes and simply sit. You're not trying to meditate in any formal sense, not trying to empty your mind or achieve any particular state. You're just sitting, just breathing, just being. The rain continues above, the sound filtered and softened by the trees. Your breath moves in and out, steady and natural. Your heart beats in your chest, that faithful muscle that never rests, never stops its work of keeping you alive. Time becomes elastic, meaningless. You might have been sitting for 5 minutes or 50. You have no way of knowing and no desire to check. You're outside of time here, in a space where the usual markers and measurements don't apply. When you finally open your eyes, the quality of light has changed slightly, suggesting that the clouds have shifted or thinned, though the rain continues. You stand slowly, mindfully, and as you do, you feel different. Calmer, certainly, but also somehow more aligned, more integrated, as if parts of yourself that are usually scattered and disconnected have, for this moment at least, come together into a coherent whole. You leave the meditation grove reluctantly, already knowing you'll return here later, perhaps multiple times during your stay. But there's more garden to explore, and you're curious to see it all. The map shows that the stream walk is to the southwest, and you decide to head in that direction. The path takes you through an area where the garden becomes wilder, less manicured. Here, native plants dominate. Hawthorn bushes heavy with red berries, brambles tangled in profusion, nettles standing tall in damp patches. This is still clearly part of the designed landscape, but it's been designed to look natural, to provide habitat for wildlife, while still maintaining paths for human visitors. You hear the stream before you see it, a liquid babbling that adds a new voice to the rain's percussion. The path descends slightly, following the natural grade of the land, and then you're walking alongside the water. The stream is perhaps 2 meters wide, running clear over a bed of smooth stones. The rain has swollen it slightly, you suspect, giving it more volume and speed than it might normally have. Water tumbles over and around rocks, creating small rapids and pools, constantly moving, constantly rearranging itself. The stream walk follows the water's course through the garden, and you follow it now, fascinated by how it changes every few meters. Here, it's shallow and wide, spreading out over a pebbly bed. There, it narrows and deepens, running swift and dark between mossy banks. In one place, it creates a small waterfall, perhaps half a meter high, where the water pours over a ledge of rock into a clear pool below. You stop at the waterfall, mesmerized by the movement and sound. The rain has intensified slightly, and you can see individual droplets hitting the pool's surface, creating concentric circles that intersect with the ripples created by the falling water. It's hypnotic, this interplay of rain and stream, of falling water and flowing water, all of it part of the same planetary water cycle that's been running for billions of years. A flash of blue catches your eye, and you turn your head just in time to see a kingfisher dart away downstream, flying low and fast just above the water's surface. You didn't know there were kingfishers here, and the sight of that brilliant blue plumage against the gray and green landscape makes your heart leap with delight. The path continues to follow the stream, and you continue to follow the path, drawn forward by curiosity and the pleasure of discovery. You pass under a canopy of alders that lean over the water, their roots exposed on the bank, grasping at the soil like arthritic fingers. You walk through a section where ferns grow in abundance on both sides of the stream, their fronds creating a tunnel of green through which you can just barely see sky. The stream leads you to the edge of the property, or what you assume is the edge, because here a stone wall runs perpendicular to the water, and the stream passes through it via a low arch. You can see beyond the wall to what looks like agricultural land, a field of some crop you don't recognize from this distance. This is where the garden's sanctuary ends and the working landscape begins. You turn back, retracing your steps along the stream walk, but everything looks different from this direction. It's one of the pleasures of walking a path twice. You see things you missed the first time, notice details that were hidden from your previous perspective. You spot a dipper, a small brown bird standing on a rock in the middle of the stream. As you watch, it bobs up and down in its characteristic manner, then suddenly plunges into the water, completely submerging itself. A few seconds later, it pops back up on a different rock, apparently having caught something, though you're too far away to see what. Mushrooms are growing in profusion along the damp bank, and you stop to photograph them with your phone, wanting to remember these strange and beautiful fungi. Some are tiny, no bigger than your pinky nail, bright orange and growing in clusters. Others are larger, brown with white gills, emerging singly from the leaf litter. A few are truly spectacular, large brackets growing from a dead log, layered like shelves, each one a different shade of brown and cream and rust. You're so absorbed in photographing the mushrooms that you almost step on a frog. It leaps away at the last second, and you freeze, startled and apologetic, though the frog can't understand your murmured sorry. It lands in a patch of wet grass and sits there, eyeing you, its throat poolsing with each breath. The rain has picked up again, and you're definitely getting wet now, despite your waterproof jacket. Your pants are soaked from the knees down, your boots are squelching, and water is dripping off your hood onto your face. But you're not cold, and you're not uncomfortable. In fact, you feel exhilarated, alive in a way you haven't felt in a long time. When you return to the caravan, you're thoroughly drenched. You leave your muddy boots outside the door, peel off your wet jacket, and hang it to dry, and change into dry clothes. The heater has kept the interior wonderfully warm, and you make yourself a cup of hot chocolate, adding a splash of vanilla extract you find in the cupboard. Wrapped in a blanket, cradling the hot chocolate, you return to the window seat and look out at the garden. You've explored perhaps a third of it, you estimate, based on the map. There's still so much to see. The rose walk, the orchard, the wildflower meadow, the mysterious folly. But you have time. Days of time. No rush, no deadline, no pressure. The afternoon stretches ahead, soft and gray and filled with rain. You could explore more, or you could rest. You could read, or you could simply sit and watch the weather. Every option feels equally appealing, and you realize this is what true freedom feels like. Having choices that are all genuinely good, where there's no wrong answer, where whatever you decide will be exactly right. You sip your hot chocolate and watch a pair of wood pigeons land on the grass near the pond. They walk around pecking at things on the ground, their movements ungainly and somehow endearing. One of them fluffs its feathers against the rain, creating a brief halo of spray, then settles them back down. The frogs have started calling again, even though it's daytime. The sound carries clearly through the rain, that deep, resonant croaking that speaks of contentment and abundance. You count at least 5 different voices, probably more, creating a chorus that rises and falls in waves. Your eyes feel heavy, that pleasant drowsiness that comes from fresh air and gentle exercise and the sound of rain. You let them close just for a moment, just to rest them. When you open them again, the light has changed significantly, and you realize you've been asleep for at least an hour, maybe more. The hot chocolate mug is still in your hands, now cold, and you're stiff from sitting in the same position for so long. You stand and stretch, working out the kinks, then move to the kitchen to pour out the cold chocolate and rinse the mug. Your stomach rumbles, suggesting it's time for a late lunch or an early dinner. You're not sure which, and it doesn't really matter. You explore the fridge again and decide to make something warming, soup, perhaps, or a simple pasta dish. You find dried pasta in the cupboard, along with tinned tomatoes, garlic, dried herbs. Perfect. You'll make a simple tomato pasta, the kind of comfort food that's perfect for rainy days. As you cook, moving around the small kitchen with increasing familiarity, you find yourself humming. You haven't hummed in months, maybe longer, but here it feels natural. The rain provides a backing track, and you add your voice to it, creating your own small music. The pasta cooks, the sauce simmers, and delicious smells fill the caravan. You grate some of the cheese from the fridge, set the small table, pour yourself a glass of water. When the food is ready, you serve it in a simple bowl and sit down to eat. It's just pasta, nothing fancy, but it tastes like the best thing you've ever eaten. Maybe it's the hunger, or maybe it's the fact that you cooked it yourself with care and attention. Or maybe it's just that food tastes better when you're truly relaxed and able to savor it. Whatever the reason, you eat slowly, enjoying every bite, mopping up the sauce with bread. After dinner, you wash up, tidy the kitchen, and then you're faced with the question of how to spend the evening. It's not late yet, probably only 6 or 7 o'clock, though the darkness and rain make it feel later. You decide to light some candles, creating ambience that feels right for a rainy evening in a caravan. You find matches in a drawer and light 3 pillar candles, placing them where they'll cast the best light. One on the small table, one on the counter, and one on the shelf above the bench seat. The candlelight transforms the space immediately, making it feel even cozier, even more like a refuge from the world outside. The flames flicker and dance, creating moving shadows on the walls, and their warm light is so much more pleasant than the harsh overhead electric light. You browse the bookshelf, running your fingers along the spines, reading titles. There's a mix of genres: contemporary fiction, classics, poetry, nature writing, memoirs. Someone has curated this collection with care, choosing books that feel right for this space, for the kind of reading one does while seeking rest and restoration. You pull out a slim volume of poetry, recognizing the poet's name as someone whose work you've enjoyed before. You settle onto the bench seat with your blanket and pillows, arranging yourself comfortably, and open the book at random. The poem you land on is about rain, which feels serendipitous. You read it slowly, paying attention to each word, each line break, each image. The poet describes rain as a kind of blessing, a gift from sky to earth, and you find yourself nodding in agreement. Yes, you think, that's exactly what it is. You read several more poems, then set the book aside and simply sit, listening to the rain, watching the candle flames, feeling the gentle sway and creak of the caravan when the wind gusts. The evening deepens. The darkness beyond the windows becomes complete. The sounds of the garden change as diurnal creatures settle for sleep and nocturnal ones begin to stir. You hear an owl again, closer than last night, its hooting loud and clear. Something rustles in the bushes near the caravan. The frogs maintain their chorus, tireless in their calling. You're not tired yet, despite your afternoon nap, but you're deeply content, deeply at peace. This is exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, which is essentially nothing at all. You think about making more tea, but the thought of moving from your comfortable nest on the bench is too much effort. Instead, you just stay where you are, warm and cozy, watching the rain, listening to the night, letting yourself drift in that pleasant space between waking and sleeping, between doing and being, between the person you usually are and the person you could be if you let yourself rest enough to remember. The next morning arrives with a subtle shift in the rain's rhythm. You wake to find that the downpour has gentled into something even softer, a fine mist that hangs in the air more than it falls. The world beyond the caravan windows is shrouded in fog, creating a sense of absolute privacy, as if the garden has wrapped itself in a blanket and pulled you in close. You lie in bed for a while, not quite awake, but not asleep either, drifting in that liminal space where thoughts are loose and unformed, where your body is still heavy with rest, but your mind is beginning to stir. The mistrain creates a different sound than yesterday's heavier precipitation, more of a whisper than a drumbeat, a gentle static that fills the air with white noise. When you finally rise, moving slowly and without urgency, you notice your body feels different. The stiffness you usually carry in your shoulders has melted away. Your neck turns easily, without the usual click and resistance. Even your jaw feels relaxed, and you realize you haven't been clenching it in your sleep, something you normally do without being aware of it. You make coffee this morning, craving something stronger than tea, and while it brews, you stand at the window, watching the fog transform the garden into something ethereal and otherworldly. The pond has disappeared entirely into the mist, though you can hear it, the gentle plop of rain on water. The trees are reduced to ghostly suggestions, their trunks visible for only a few meters before fading into white obscurity. There's something magical about fog, you think as you pour your coffee and wrap your hands around the warm mug. It simplifies the world, reducing everything to the immediate, the near, the now. You can't see far, so there's no point in looking far. You can only see what's close, so that's where your attention naturally rests. You drink your coffee slowly, making toast with butter and honey, eating it standing at the window, mesmerized by the way the fog moves and shifts, never quite the same from one moment to the next. Occasionally, a bird flies past, appearing suddenly out of the whiteness and disappearing just as quickly. And each time it startles you pleasantly, a reminder that the world continues even when you can't see it. The day stretches ahead with no particular shape or plan. Yesterday, you explored some of the garden, but today, the weather seems to be suggesting something different. A day for staying close, for staying in, for turning inward rather than outward. After breakfast, you decide to take a proper bath. The caravan's bathroom has a small tub that you noticed but haven't used yet, and suddenly, the idea of a hot bath seems perfect. You run the water, testing the temperature with your hand until it's exactly right. Hot enough to make your skin pink, but not so hot that it's uncomfortable. While the tub fills, you search through the bathroom cabinet and find a collection of bath products, all natural, all handmade. There are bath salts in glass jars with cork stoppers, each one labeled with its contents: lavender and chamomile, eucalyptus and mint, rose and geranium. You choose the lavender and chamomile, scooping a generous handful into the water and watching the salts dissolve, releasing their scent into the steamy air. You undress and lower yourself into the water, and the heat is immediate and enveloping. You sink down until the water reaches your chin, until only your head remains above the surface, and you let out a long, involuntary sigh of pleasure. This is exactly what your body needed: this heat, this buoyancy, this liquid embrace. You close your eyes and simply float, your muscles releasing, your joints loosening, your whole body softening in the water. The scent of lavender fills your nostrils with each breath, and you can feel its calming properties working on your nervous system, telling it to stand down, to relax, to let go of the constant vigilance that usually defines your waking hours. The mistrain continues outside, and you can hear it even here in the bathroom. A gentle pattering that harmonizes with the occasional drip of the tap and the small sounds of water lapping against the sides of the tub when you shift position. You stay in the bath for a long time, longer than you've stayed in a bath in years. When did baths become something you rushed through, something you squeezed into the 5 minutes before bed, something functional rather than restorative? When did you stop giving yourself permission to simply soak, to simply be, to simply enjoy the simple pleasure of hot water and stillness? When the water finally begins to cool, you drain the tub and refill it, adding more hot water and more salts, extending this ritual because you can, because there's no reason not to, because this is what you came here to do: rest, restore, renew. Eventually, you do emerge, pruned and pink, and thoroughly relaxed. You wrap yourself in a towel, and then in the thick robe, and you feel like you're moving through honey, everything slow and gentle and easy. The morning has become afternoon without you noticing the transition. Time continues to behave strangely here, moving at its own pace, refusing to be measured by the usual markers and milestones. You find yourself not caring what time it is, not even curious about it. The only time that matters is now, and now is always perfect. You make yourself a light lunch, nothing elaborate, just some soup heated on the stove and eaten with thick slices of buttered bread. The soup is homemade. You can tell, probably from Margaret's kitchen, rich with vegetables from the garden and herbs that make each spoonful a small revelation of flavor. After lunch, you feel drowsy again, that pull toward sleep that seems to be a constant presence here. Rather than fighting it, rather than reaching for caffeine or trying to push through it, you simply accept it. Your body wants to sleep, so you'll sleep. You curl up on the bench seat with your pillows and blankets, creating a nest of softness and warmth. Through the window, you can still see the fog, still hear the gentle rain. The world feels very small and very safe, reduced to just this caravan, this garden, this moment. You drift off easily, sliding into sleep like slipping into water, and your dreams are gentle and pleasant, filled with images of gardens and rain, and soft light filtering through mist. When you wake, the quality of light has changed again. The fog is beginning to lift, not dispersing entirely, but thinning enough that you can see more of the garden. The afternoon is well advanced, heading toward evening, and you feel supremely rested, more rested than you can remember feeling in months or maybe years. You stand and stretch, extending your arms overhead, bending side to side, rolling your shoulders. Your body feels loose and easy, ready to move, but not compelled to, content to simply be. You decide to explore a bit more of the garden, to visit one of the areas you haven't seen yet. The map shows the rose walk to the north, and that seems perfect for this misty afternoon. You dress in your waterproof jacket again, pull on your boots, and step out into the gentle rain. The air is cool and fresh against your face, and you breathe it deeply, filling your lungs with the scent of wet earth and growing things. The fog has created a landscape of layers and veils, where things appear and disappear depending on how the mist moves. You follow the gravel path northward, and within a few minutes, you see the beginning of the rose walk. A series of wooden arches span the path, each one approximately 3 meters high and 2 meters wide, and climbing roses have been trained over them, creating a tunnel of flowers and foliage. Even though it's late in the season, the roses are still blooming, though not as profusely as they would have been in midsummer. Still, there are enough flowers to create beauty and fragrance, and the rain has intensified their scent until the air is thick with the perfume of roses. You walk slowly under the arches, touching the petals occasionally, feeling their velvet softness. There are so many varieties here, each one different from the last. Deep red roses that are almost black in the center, their petals opening to reveal golden stamens. Pale pink roses with ruffled edges that look like they're made from silk. White roses so pure they seem to glow in the misty light. Yellow roses the color of butter. Coral roses that shift between pink and orange depending on the angle of light. Some of the roses are singles, with just 5 petals arranged around a central boss of stamens. Others are fully double, with dozens of petals swirled in complex patterns. Some are tiny, no bigger than your thumbnail, growing in clusters. Others are enormous, the size of saucers, 1 bloom per stem. The rose walk is longer than you expected, continuing for perhaps 50 meters before opening into a circular clearing, where there's a bench positioned to look back down the tunnel of arches. You sit on the bench, not minding its wetness, and you look back the way you came. The view is stunning. The arches create a frame, a series of doorways leading your eye down the path and into the misty distance. The roses provide color and texture, and the rain creates a shimmer over everything, a sense of movement and life. You sit very still, and a robin appears, landing on one of the arches directly in front of you. It cocks its head, regarding you with one bright black eye, then begins to sing. The song is loud for such a small bird, a series of melodious warbles and trills that seem too big to come from that tiny throat. You listen enchanted, and the robin continues to sing, apparently unconcerned by your presence. Its orange-red breast is puffed out, and you can see its whole body vibrating with the effort of producing such volume. After a minute or two, it stops abruptly, gives you one more look as if to say, "There, what did you think of that?" and then flies off into the mist. You smile, delighted by this unexpected concert. The garden keeps offering these small gifts, these moments of connection with the natural world that feel both ordinary and miraculous. The afternoon light is beginning to fade now, the gray of the foggy day deepening toward the gray of evening. You stand and begin walking back toward the caravan, following the rose walk in reverse, seeing it from a new perspective. As you walk, you notice things you missed on the way in. A spider's web strung between two rose canes, the intricate spiral design made visible by thousands of tiny water droplets clinging to each strand. A snail making its slow way up one of the wooden arch posts, leaving a glistening trail behind it. A cluster of rose hips, the fruits of earlier blooms, bright orange red and full of seeds. By the time you reach the caravan, the light is definitely failing, and you're ready to be inside, to be warm and dry. You shed your wet things at the door and immediately set about creating a cozy evening atmosphere. You light candles again, more of them this time, placing them throughout the caravan until the small space is filled with their warm, flickering light. You turn on the small radio and find a station playing classical music, something gentle and suitable for a rainy evening. The music provides a soft background, filling the spaces between the rain sounds without overwhelming them. You prepare dinner with care and attention, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry, cooking rice, creating a meal that's both nourishing and comforting. As you cook, you find yourself moving in time with the music, swaying slightly, your body relaxed and easy in a way it hasn't been in far too long. The meal is simple but delicious, and you eat it at the small table, taking your time, savoring each bite. Through the window, you can see that full darkness has fallen now, and the mist has thickened again into proper fog, obscuring everything beyond a few meters. The garden's lanterns are lit, creating halos of soft light in the fog, and the effect is mystical, like something from a fairy tale. You could be anywhere, anytime. The modern world has fallen away entirely, and you're suspended in a pocket of peace and timelessness. After dinner, you wash the dishes and tidy the kitchen. Then you make yourself a cup of herbal tea and settle onto the bench seat with one of the books from the shelf. You've chosen a collection of nature essays, writing that celebrates the natural world and our place within it. You read slowly, occasionally pausing to look up and out at the fog-shrouded garden, occasionally setting the book aside entirely to just sit and think about what you've read. The essays are thoughtful and beautifully written, and they speak to something deep inside you, some part of yourself that you've been neglecting, some connection to the earth and its rhythms that modern life has tried to sever. One essay talks about the importance of seasonal rest, about how nature builds in periods of dormancy and restoration, and how humans have tried to override this with artificial light and constant productivity. The writer argues that we pay a price for this, that our bodies and minds need rest the way gardens need winter, that growth is impossible without periods of stillness. You find yourself nodding as you read, recognizing truth in these words. You've been trying to be productive year-round, season after season, never allowing yourself a proper rest, and you can feel the exhaustion of it in your bones. This time in the garden sanctuary isn't an indulgence, it's a necessity. It's your winter, your dormancy, your chance to restore yourself so that growth becomes possible again. The evening deepens, and you continue to read and rest, occasionally getting up to make more tea or adjust a candle or simply stretch. The rain continues, sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter, but always present, always there, a constant companion and comfort. At some point, you realize you're ready for bed, not because you're particularly tired, but because bed sounds appealing, because the idea of climbing under those soft sheets and listening to the rain from the comfort and warmth of the bed feels exactly right. You prepare for bed slowly, going through your evening routine without rush. You brush your teeth, wash your face, change into comfortable sleepwear. You blow out all the candles except one, which you carry to the bedside table, placing it where its light will last a while longer. You climb into bed, and the sheets are cool and crisp against your skin. You arrange the pillows, pull the duvet up to your chin, and look out the window at the fog and the faint glow of the garden's lanterns. The rain patters on the roof, gentle and rhythmic, and you can hear the frogs calling from the pond, their voices rising and falling in waves. Somewhere in the distance, that owl hoots again, and you imagine it sitting in one of the tall trees, sheltered from the rain, watching the garden with its large, night-seeing eyes. Your body sinks into the mattress, heavy and relaxed, and you feel yourself beginning to drift. Not quite sleeping yet, but moving in that direction, floating on the edge between waking and dreaming. You think about the past 2 days, about how different you feel already. The constant mental chatter has quieted. The tension you usually carry has released. You feel more like yourself than you have in months, or perhaps more accurately, you feel like a version of yourself that's been buried under stress and obligations and the relentless pace of modern life. Here in this garden, in this caravan, in this rain, you've been able to excavate that self, to remember who you are beneath all the layers of should and must and have to. You're someone who appreciates beauty, someone who can sit still, someone who finds peace in simple things: rain, tea, candlelight, the song of a robin. The candle flame flickers and dances, creating moving shadows on the ceiling, and you watch it with half-closed eyes. Your breathing has deepened, matching itself to the rhythm of the rain, and you feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation, deeper into rest. Tomorrow there will be more garden to explore, more rest to be had, more healing to unfold. But you don't need to think about tomorrow now. Now, there's only this moment, this bed, this rain, this perfect, peaceful now. The candle burns lower, its flame growing smaller, and your eyes grow heavier. The rain continues its gentle percussion, and the frogs continue their chorus, and the owl continues its patient hooting, and you continue to drift deeper and deeper into peace. Your last conscious thought is a simple one, a recognition and a gratitude. I am exactly where I need to be. And then you're sleeping deeply and peacefully, while the rain falls on and the garden keeps its watch, and the night unfolds in all its misty mystery around you. The third day dawns soft and gray, the rain finally beginning to ease. You wake naturally, without alarm, and lie in bed listening to the changed quality of the precipitation. It's lighter now, more intermittent, coming in gentle waves rather than the steady downpour of the previous days. You stretch luxuriously, feeling your body wake slowly and gently. There's no rush this morning, no reason to leap out of bed and start the day. You can wake as slowly as you like, and so you do, taking your time, drifting in and out of light sleep, enjoying the warmth and comfort of the bed. When you finally rise, you notice the light is different today. The clouds are beginning to break up, and occasional shafts of watery sunlight penetrate the gray, creating patches of pale gold that move across the garden as the clouds shift. You make tea and carry it back to bed, propping yourself up against the pillows and watching the light show beyond the window. The rain creates prisms in the air where it intersects with the sunbeams, creating tiny rainbows that appear and disappear in moments. The garden seems to be waking up too, responding to the hint of sun, and you can see birds becoming more active, flitting from branch to branch, calling to each other in voices that sound celebratory. The day feels different from the previous two. Those were days of deep rest, of turning inward, of staying small and quiet and still. Today feels like a day of gentle emergence, of beginning to stir, of slowly coming back to life after a period of dormancy. You dress in comfortable clothes and decide to explore more of the garden while the rain is light. The map shows the orchard to the south, and you haven't visited that area yet. You pull on your waterproof jacket, though you suspect you won't need it as much today, and step outside. The air is fresh and clean, washed by days of rain, and it smells intensely of earth and growing things. The gravel crunches under your boots as you set off toward the orchard, following a path that winds through an area of the garden you haven't explored yet. You pass through what looks like a cutting garden, with rows of flowers grown specifically for bringing indoors. There are dahlias in their late season glory, their complex blooms in shades of burgundy and peach and cream. Cosmos dance on tall stems, their delicate flowers like tiny plates held up to the sky. Zinnias provide bold splashes of color, and sweet peas climb up bamboo teepees, their flowers releasing perfume into the damp air. Beyond the cutting garden, the path enters the orchard, and you find yourself walking between rows of fruit trees. They're old trees, you can tell, their trunks thick and gnarled, their branches spreading wide. Small plaques at the base of each tree identify the variety, and you read them as you pass. Bramley's seedling, Cox's orange pippin, Egremont russet, Discovery, James Grieve. The trees still hold some fruit, though most of the crop has been harvested. A few late apples cling to high branches, and there are fallen fruits on the ground, slowly returning to the earth that fed the tree that grew them. The scent of fermenting apples perfumes the air, sweet and slightly alcoholic. You spot a ladder leaning against one of the trees, and you realize someone, probably Margit, has been harvesting recently. There's something deeply satisfying about this evidence of the garden's productivity, its ability to provide not just beauty, but sustenance. The orchard opens into a small clearing where there's a wooden picnic table and benches, weathered to a silvery gray. You sit at the table, and from this vantage point, you can see the full extent of the orchard, perhaps 30 or 40 trees in total, arranged in loose rows that follow the contours of the land. The rain has stopped entirely now, and the clouds are continuing to break up, revealing patches of blue sky. Sunlight streams through these gaps, creating dramatic effects as it backlights the trees and illuminates the mist that still hangs in the lower areas of the garden. You sit very still, and within minutes, a blackbird lands nearby, picking through the fallen leaves in search of insects. It's completely absorbed in its work, and you're able to watch it closely as it hops and pecks, turns over leaves with its beak, occasionally pulling up a worm or grub. Another blackbird appears, and then another, and soon there's a whole group of them working the area around you. Their movements are quick and efficient, and their calls create a cheerful soundtrack, a series of clucks and chirps that speak of activity and purpose. A movement in your peripheral vision catches your attention, and you turn your head slowly to see a squirrel running along a branch of the nearest apple tree. Its tail is enormously bushy, its movements precise and confident. It stops at the end of the branch, selects an apple, and begins to eat it, holding it in its small paws and turning it as it nibbles. You watch, charmed by this scene of wildlife going about its business, and you feel a deep sense of peace settle over you. This is what the garden offers, not just beauty, not just rest, but connection. Connection to the natural world, to the rhythms and cycles that were part of whether we remember it or not. The sun breaks through more strongly now, and within minutes, the whole character of the day changes. The gray gives way to blue, the damp air begins to warm, and you can see mist rising from the wet ground as the sun heats it. You stand and continue your walk through the orchard, emerging on the far side near an area the map labels as the wildflower meadow. Even this late in the season, there are flowers blooming: purple asters, goldenrod, late blooming daisies. The grass is long and meadow-like, allowed to grow naturally rather than being mown, and it ripples in the breeze like water. A path has been mowed through the meadow, creating a walkway that allows you to move through the space without trampling the flowers. You follow this path, and butterflies rise ahead of you with each step, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all seemingly feasting on the late season nectar. There are peacock butterflies with their distinctive eye spots, red admirals with their bright wing bands, small tortoise shells in russet and black, a few pale yellow butterflies that might be brimstones. They float and dance in the sunlight, and you stand still, letting them settle around you, feeling blessed by their presence. The path through the meadow leads to an area you haven't noticed on the map, a small hillock that rises perhaps 5 meters above the surrounding garden. You climb the gentle slope, and at the top, you discover a surprise: a bench positioned to look out over the entire garden sanctuary. From this elevated position, you can see it all laid out before you. The caravan by its pond, looking like a tiny, perfect jewel. The meditation grove with its circle of white birches. The stream winding through the landscape. The orchard with its orderly rows. The rose-covered arches. The patches of cultivated garden and the wilder areas. All of it contained within the stone walls and hedges that define the boundary, creating a world within the world. You sit on the bench, and you understand why it's been placed here. This is a viewing place, a spot for perspective, for seeing the whole rather than just the parts. You've spent the past days moving through the garden at ground level, experiencing it intimately, but from here you can appreciate its overall design, the way each area relates to the others, the thoughtfulness and care that has gone into creating this sanctuary. The sun is warm on your face now, properly warm for the first time since you arrived. You close your eyes and tilt your head back, letting the light and heat soak into your skin. You can feel it energizing you, waking up parts of yourself that have been dormant during the rainy days. You're not sure how long you sit there, basking in the sun, but when you open your eyes, the sky is even clearer, the blue deeper and more extensive. The day has fully transformed from gray to golden, and you feel yourself transforming too, moving from the deep inward rest of the rainy days to a gentle outward stirring. You make your way back down the hillock and through the meadow, following the mowed path back toward the cultivated areas of the garden. You find yourself near an area the map labels simply as the Folly, the mysterious location that has piqued your curiosity since you first saw it marked. You follow a narrow path that leads through a dense planting of bamboo, the tall canes creating walls on either side. The path curves and winds, creating a sense of mystery and anticipation. And then it opens into a small clearing, and you see the Folly, It's a structure unlike anything else in the garden, a small building made of weathered wood and stone, circular in shape, with a conical roof. It looks ancient, though you suspect it's probably not more than a few decades old, just built in a traditional style and allowed to age naturally. The door is unlocked, and you push it open gently, not sure what you'll find inside. The interior is dim after the bright sunshine, and you wait for your eyes to adjust. Gradually, you make out the details. A single round room, perhaps 4 meters in diameter. The walls are lined with cushioned benches, creating seating all around the perimeter. In the center of the room, there's a low table, and on it, a candle in a glass holder, matches beside it. The ceiling is domed, and it's been painted dark blue, with stars picked out in silver paint. It's a simple effect, but stunning, creating the sense of sitting beneath the night sky. Light comes from small windows placed high in the walls, casting gentle beams down into the space. You step inside and close the door behind you, and immediately you feel the quality of silence change. This is a contemplative space, a meditation room, a place designed for inner work. You can feel it in the proportions of the room, in the way the sound behaves, in the quality of the light. You light the candle on the central table, and its small flame creates a focal point, a center around which the space organizes itself. You sit on one of the cushioned benches, and you understand why this place was marked on the map with the note, "Secrets Within." The secret is that this space invites you to find your own secrets, to look within yourself, to sit with whatever arises in the silence and the stillness. It's a space that asks nothing of you, but offers everything. A place to be, a place to rest, a place to simply exist without distraction or demand. You sit for a long time, watching the candle flame, letting your mind wander where it will. Thoughts come and go like clouds, and you observe them without attachment. Feelings rise and fall like waves, and you let them move through you without resistance. At some point, you realize tears are running down your face, though you're not sad. They're tears of release, of letting go, of some knot inside you finally untying itself. You let them fall, not wiping them away, just allowing them to be. The garden has worked its magic on you, you realize. The rain, the rest, the beauty, the silence, the solitude, all of it has created the conditions for healing, for restoration, for remembering who you are beneath all the layers of stress and obligation and constant doing. You sit until the tears stop and your breathing steadies, and you feel clean and clear and somehow new. Then you blow out the candle, say a silent thank you to the space, and step back out into the sunshine. The rest of the afternoon passes in gentle activity. You walk more of the garden paths, discovering small areas you haven't seen yet. A water feature where a spring emerges from rocks and trickles into a small pool. A children's garden with miniature structures and tiny plantings. A sculpture garden where stone and metal artworks nestle among the plants. Eventually, You make your way back to the caravan, and the sun is beginning its descent toward the horizon. The evening will be clear tonight, the first clear evening since you arrived, and you feel excited to see what the garden looks like under stars. You prepare dinner as the light fades, making something simple and satisfying. You eat as the sun sets, watching the sky transform through shades of gold and orange and pink before finally deepening to twilight blue. As darkness falls, you step outside and look up. The sky is full of stars, more stars than you've seen in years, maybe decades. The absence of light pollution here means the Milky Way is visible, a river of light flowing across the heavens. You stand in the clearing, head tilted back, turning slowly to take it all in. The constellations are so clear. Orion with his distinctive belt, the Plough, Cassiopeia's W, all of them exactly where they should be, eternal and unchanging. The night air is cool, but not cold, and you stay outside for a long time, stargazing, listening to the sounds of the night garden. Without the rain, new sounds emerge. The rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth, the chirp of crickets, the hoot of the owl that sounds very close now. When you finally go inside, you feel full, satisfied in a way that has nothing to do with food. You've been fed by beauty, by nature, by rest, by silence. You've been restored in ways you didn't even know you needed. You prepare for bed with a sense of deep contentment. And as you slide between the sheets, you realize tomorrow is your last full day here. The thought creates a small pang of sadness, but also gratitude for the time you've had, for the gift of these days in the garden sanctuary. The night is quiet without the rain, and you can hear different sounds through the open window. Leaves rustling, the pond's gentle lapping, a fox barking in the distance. You lie in the darkness, looking at the stars through the window, and you feel held by something larger than yourself, connected to the earth and sky and all the life that moves through this garden. Sleep comes easily, naturally, and your dreams are peaceful, filled with light and growth and the gentle unfolding of petals in the sun. The fourth morning arrives with birdsong, a chorus so rich and varied that it pulls you gently from sleep like a hand reaching down into warm water. You lie still with your eyes closed, just listening, trying to identify the different voices. There's the blackbird with its melodious fluting, the robin's warbling song, the great tit's repetitive two-note call, and beneath it all, the soft cooing of wood pigeons. You open your eyes to find the caravan filled with golden morning light. The sun is streaming through the windows, creating bright rectangles on the floor and walls, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air. It's the kind of light that only comes after rain, when the atmosphere has been washed clean, and everything is sharp and clear and impossibly beautiful. You rise slowly, stretching as you stand, and move to the window. The garden is transformed. What was mysterious and moody in the rain is now vivid and glorious in the sunshine. Every leaf seems to glow with its own inner light. pond sparkles like it's been scattered with diamonds. The colors are so intense they're almost overwhelming. The deep green of the grass, the silver bark of the birches, the remaining roses in their various hues, the golden brown of the grasses. This is your last full day here, and the knowledge sits in your chest with a bittersweet weight. You're sad to be leaving this sanctuary, this place that has offered you such profound rest and restoration. But you're also grateful, so deeply grateful for the time you've had, and you're aware of something else too, a sense of readiness. You've rested well, you've restored yourself, and while you could happily stay here indefinitely, you also feel prepared to return to your life, carrying this experience with you like a touchstone. But that's tomorrow. Today is still yours, a full day to savor and enjoy, to wring every last drop of peace and beauty from this place before you leave. You make coffee and take it outside, sitting on the steps of the caravan in your pajamas and robe, barefoot on the dew-wet grass. The morning air is cool and fresh, and the sun is warm on your face, and the combination is perfect. You sip your coffee slowly, watching the garden wake up around you. A family of ducks appears on the pond, gliding across the surface in a perfect line. 2 adults and 4 ducklings, already quite large, but still clearly juveniles. They paddle around the pond, occasionally upending to feed on underwater vegetation, their tail feathers pointing comically at the sky. You watch them for a long time, charmed by their industriousness, by the way the ducklings follow their parents so faithfully, by the simple beauty of their presence. When they finally leave, flying off in a whir of wings towards some other water source, you feel blessed by having witnessed them. The morning unfolds gently. You make yourself a proper breakfast: scrambled eggs with herbs from the garden, toast, fresh tomatoes, sliced and drizzled with olive oil. You eat outside at the small metal table someone has placed near the caravan, enjoying the sunshine, feeling it soak into your skin and bones. After breakfast, you decide to spend the morning simply being present in the garden, moving slowly from area to area, revisiting the places you've discovered over the past days, saying a kind of silent goodbye to each one. You start at the pond, walking slowly around its perimeter, noting details you haven't noticed before. There's a family of water beetles skating across the surface, their movements creating tiny ripples. A dragonfly rests on a reed, its wings iridescent in the sunlight, its body the most vivid blue you've ever seen. The water lilies are fully open now, their white petals spread wide to catch the sun, revealing their golden centers. You move on to the herb garden, and in the daylight, without rain obscuring your vision, you can appreciate its design even more fully. The circular beds create a mandala-like pattern, and you realize that the plants have been arranged not just for their culinary or medicinal properties, but also for their aesthetics, their colors and textures playing off each other in carefully considered combinations. You run your hands over the lavender, releasing its scent, and you pluck a few sprigs to take back to the caravan. You touch the soft leaves of the lamb's ear, Feel the rough texture of the rosemary. Breathe in the sharp scent of the mints. From the herb garden, you walk to the meditation grove, and entering that circular space of birch trees and moss, you feel your breathing automatically deepen and slow. The light filtering through the birch canopy creates a dappled pattern on the moss, constantly shifting as the leaves move in the breeze. You sit on the central stone again, crossing your legs, resting your hands on your knees, and you close your eyes. You don't try to meditate in any formal way, you just sit, just breathe. Just let yourself be held by this sacred space. Birds call in the trees around you. The breeze rustles the leaves overhead. Your breath moves in and out, steady and natural. Your heart beats in your chest, that faithful rhythm that has sustained you every moment of your life without you having to think about it. After a time that might be 5 minutes or 50, you open your eyes and stand. You place your hand on the central stone for a moment, a gesture of thanks, of acknowledgement, of reverence for this space and what it offers. You continue your wandering, visiting the stream walk and watching the water sparkle over the rocks, following the rose walk and touching the petals of the remaining blooms, standing in the orchard among the ancient fruit trees with their gnarled trunks and spreading branches. You climb the hillock again and sit on the bench at the top, looking out over the entire garden sanctuary. From this vantage point, you can see how it all fits together, how each area flows into the next, how the cultivated spaces and the wild spaces balance each other, how the whole thing is an expression of harmony between human intention and natural growth. The sun climbs higher and the day grows warmer. You return to the caravan and change into lighter clothes, filling a water bottle to take with you. You pack a small bag with a book, an apple, some cheese and crackers, thinking you might find a spot to have a picnic lunch. The map shows one area you haven't fully explored yet, the far edge of the property where the stream meets the wall. You decide to head that direction, following the stream walk beyond where you went before, continuing along the water's course. The path here is narrower, less maintained, and you have to push through vegetation in places. Wild roses grab at your clothes with their thorns. Nettles grow in dense patches, and you navigate around them carefully. The stream babbles and chatters beside you, and you can hear it more clearly here, away from other sounds. After perhaps 10 minutes of walking, the stream widens into a small pool, perhaps 5 meters across, where the water has carved out a natural swimming hole in the rock. The pool is shaded by overhanging trees, and the water looks dark and mysterious and incredibly inviting. You didn't bring swimming clothes, and for a moment you hesitate, but then you think, why not? You're alone here, completely private, and the water is calling to you. You set down your bag, kick off your shoes, and wade in. The water is cold, shockingly cold, and you gasp as it reaches your knees, your thighs, your waist. But you keep going, pushing through the initial discomfort, and then you're in deep enough to swim, push off from the rocky bottom and glide through the water. The cold is intense, but exhilarating, waking up every nerve in your body, making you feel impossibly alive and present. You swim across the pool and back, your movements creating ripples that spread out in expanding circles. You float on your back, looking up at the canopy of leaves overhead, feeling the cold water support your body, feeling weightless and free. You stay in the water until you start to shiver, then climb out onto a flat rock at the pool's edge. The sun has found a gap in the trees, and the rock is warm beneath you. You lie there, letting the sun dry your skin, feeling it heat your body from the outside, while your internal temperature gradually returns to normal. This feels primal, elemental, connecting you to something ancient in your DNA. Humans have been swimming in natural waters since the beginning of time, feeling this same shock of cold, this same exhilaration, this same pleasure of sun-warmed rock afterward. You're part of an unbroken chain stretching back thousands of generations, and for this moment, you feel connected to all of it, to all of them, to the great continuum of human experience. When you're dry and warm, you dress again and eat your simple lunch sitting on the rock by the pool. The cheese is sharp and satisfying, the apple crisp and sweet, the crackers the perfect vehicle for both. You wash it down with water from your bottle, and nothing has ever tasted better. After lunch, you lie back on the rock and read for a while. But the combination of sun and food and the residual effects of the cold swim make you drowsy. And eventually, you set the book aside and just rest, drifting in and out of light sleep, your body fully relaxed, your mind quiet and still. The afternoon wears on in this peaceful way, and eventually you rouse yourself and begin the walk back toward the caravan. The return journey feels different from the outward one, as return journeys always do. You're seeing everything from a new angle, noticing things you missed before. You take your time, stopping frequently to look at plants, to watch insects, to simply stand and breathe and soak in the beauty of this place. You want to fix it in your memory, want to be able to recall it when you're back in your regular life, when you need to remember that places like this exist, that peace like this is possible. When you reach the caravan, the sun is beginning its descent toward the horizon, though sunset is still hours away. You shower, washing off the stream water and the day's accumulation of sun and sweat, and then you dress in comfortable clothes and settle onto the bench seat with a cup of tea. You find yourself reflecting on the past few days, on everything you've experienced here. The rain that seemed like it would never stop, the fog that transformed the garden into something ethereal, the clear skies that revealed the stars, the birdsong, the wildlife, the plants in all their variety and beauty. But more than any of that, you reflect on what has happened inside you during this time. The way you've slowed down, way down, to a pace that felt uncomfortable at first, but now feels natural and right. The way you've rediscovered the pleasure of simple things, hot tea, warm blankets, good food, comfortable silence. The way you've reconnected with your body, feeling its needs and responding to them without guilt or resistance. You've remembered what it feels like to be rested, truly rested, not just not tired, but actively restored. You've remembered what it feels like to have time, real time, hours that stretch out empty and available, ready to be filled with whatever feels right in the moment. You've remembered what it feels like to be present, to not be constantly half somewhere else, planning or worrying or anticipating. These are gifts, you think, precious gifts that this place has offered and you've accepted. The question now is, how do you carry these gifts with you when you leave? How do you maintain even a fraction of this peace and presence in your regular life? You don't have answers yet, but you feel confident they'll come. For now, it's enough to acknowledge the question, to recognize that something has shifted in you, that you're not the same person who arrived here 4 days ago in the rain, tired and stressed and disconnected from yourself. The evening light is beautiful, golden and warm, and you decide to spend your last evening outside, really outside, not just sitting on the steps, but actually settling into the garden as darkness falls. You gather blankets and pillows from the caravan and carry them to the flat area near the pond where you can see the whole sky. You create a comfortable nest on the grass, arranging everything just so, and then you lie back and watch the sky transform as the sun sets. The colors are extraordinary: gold fading to peach, peach to pink, pink to lavender, lavender to deep purple. The clouds catch the light and glow like embers. Birds fly across the sky in silhouette, heading to their roosts for the night. The first star appears, then another, then dozens more as the sky darkens and the star's light becomes visible. You watch the night arrive, unhurried and complete, and you feel yourself settling into it, becoming part of it. The air cools, but you're warm in your cocoon of blankets. The sounds of the day fade, and the sounds of the night begin. The owl hooting, closer than ever before, the frogs starting their evening chorus, small rustlings in the vegetation around the pond. The Milky Way becomes visible, that river of stars stretching across the sky, and you try to comprehend the scale of what you're seeing: billions of stars, billions of light years, a universe so vast that your mind can't really grasp it. And yet here you are, a tiny human on a tiny planet, able to look up and perceive it all, to be moved by its beauty, to feel connected to it in some fundamental way. You lie there for hours, sometimes watching the sky, sometimes closing your eyes and just listening, sometimes drifting into light sleep. The night deepens and the stars wheel slowly overhead, following their ancient paths, and you feel held by something larger than yourself, some pattern or rhythm or force that connects everything: the stars, the earth, the garden, the water, the plants, the animals, you. At some point deep in the night, you hear footsteps on the gravel path, and you sit up, suddenly alert. A figure is approaching, and in the starlight you recognize Margit, carrying a lantern. "I'm sorry to disturb you," she says softly as she draws near. "I saw you out here and wanted to make sure you were all right." "I'm perfect," you tell her, and you mean it. "I wanted to spend my last night under the stars." She smiles, and in the lantern light, her face looks kind and knowing. "May I sit with you for a moment?" "Please," you say, and she settles onto the grass nearby, setting the lantern down between you. For a while, neither of you speaks. You just sit together, two humans under an infinite sky, comfortable in the silence. Finally, Margaret says, "You seem different than when you arrived. Lighter somehow, more settled." "I feel different," you say. "This place, it's given me something I didn't know I needed. Or maybe I knew I needed it, but I'd given up believing it was possible to find." "Rest," Margaret says simply. "Real rest. We've forgotten how essential it is, how human it is. We've started to think of rest as laziness, as indulgence, as something to be earned through productivity. But rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. The garden knows this. Everything in nature knows this. Only humans have forgotten." You nod, feeling the truth of her words settle into your bones. "Will you come back?" she asks. "Yes," you say without hesitation. "I don't know when, but yes. I need to remember this place exists. Remember that this kind of peace is possible." "It's always here," Margaret says. "The garden doesn't go anywhere. And you know, the peace you found here isn't really in the garden. It's in you. The garden just created the conditions for you to remember it, to access it. But you can access it anywhere, anytime, once you remember how." She stands, picking up her lantern. "I'll leave you to your stars. Tomorrow morning, just leave the key on the counter when you go. And take some herbs with you, some lavender for your pillow. Let it remind you of this time." "Thank you," you say. And the words feel inadequate for the gratitude you feel. But she seems to understand. "Thank you," she replies, "for honoring what the garden offers, for being willing to rest, for remembering." She walks away, her lantern creating a moving pool of light. And soon she disappears into the darkness, heading toward her cottage beyond the greenhouse. You lie back down in your nest of blankets and look up at the stars again. Margaret's words echo in your mind. The peace is in you. The garden just helped you remember. You think about this as the night deepens. She's right, of course. The garden is beautiful and special, but it's not magic. Or rather, the magic is in what it allows, what it makes possible. The slowing down, the paying attention, the releasing of stress and urgency, the reconnection with natural rhythms. These are things you can do anywhere, at least to some degree. You can slow down. You can pay attention. You can release urgency. You can seek out natural beauty wherever you are. You can practice rest as a sacred act rather than a guilty indulgence. The challenge will be maintaining this awareness, this commitment, when you return to your regular life with all its demands and distractions. But you feel more equipped now than you did 4 days ago. You feel like you've been given a map, a set of tools, a reminder of what's possible and what's necessary. The night continues its slow turning, and you continue to lie there, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars, listening to the sounds of the night garden. The frogs are tireless in their calling. The owl hoots periodically, sometimes close, sometimes distant. Small creatures rustle through the undergrowth. A breeze stirs the leaves and grasses, creating a soft susurration that sounds almost like the rain you listened to for so many hours. Eventually, you feel sleep beginning to pull at you, that heavy, irresistible drowsiness that comes from a long day in fresh air and sunshine. You consider going inside to the bed, but you're so comfortable here, and the night is so beautiful that you decide to stay. You pull the blankets more tightly around yourself, adjust your pillows, and let your eyes close. The sounds of the night continue around you. The frogs, the owl, the breeze, the small rustlings. But you're sinking now, sinking down through layers of consciousness, falling gently into sleep. Your last aware thought is a feeling rather than words. Profound gratitude for this time, this place, this gift of rest and restoration. And then you're sleeping deeply and peacefully, under the stars, held by the earth, embraced by the night. You sleep for hours, completely undisturbed, completely at peace. The night moves around you. The stars wheel overhead. The moon rises and sets, and you sleep through it all, your body completely relaxed, your mind completely quiet, your whole being surrendered to the deep rest you've been needing for so long. When you wake, it's because the first light of dawn is touching your eyelids, and the birds are beginning their morning chorus. You open your eyes to find the sky transforming from deep indigo to pale blue, the stars fading as the sun approaches the horizon. You're stiff from sleeping outside and cool despite your blankets, but you feel extraordinarily well rested, more rested than you have in years. There's something about sleeping under the sky, directly on the earth, that satisfies something primal in the human psyche, some need for connection to the natural world that modern indoor life can never quite fulfill. You sit up slowly, stretching, working out the kinks in your muscles. The garden is emerging from darkness into dawn light, and everything is coated with dew. Millions of tiny droplets catching the early light and making the whole landscape sparkle. The pond is perfectly still, its surface mirror smooth, reflecting the lightening sky. Mist is rising from the water, creating an ethereal effect. And as you watch, a heron lands at the pond's edge, standing perfectly still, waiting for fish to come within striking range. You watch the heron for a long time, admiring its patience, its perfect stillness, its complete presence in the moment. This is what the garden has taught you, you think. This quality of presence, of being completely where you are, doing completely what you're doing, without your mind wandering to elsewhere or elsewhen. The sun rises, breaking over the eastern edge of the garden, and suddenly everything is washed in golden light. The dew sparkles even more intensely. The mist glows, The heron's white feathers catch the light and seem to shine from within. You sit and watch the sunrise, this last gift from the garden, this final moment of beauty to carry with you. The light strengthens and spreads, the colors shifting and changing minute by minute, and you try to imprint it all in your memory, knowing you'll need to recall this in the weeks and months ahead. When the sun has fully risen and the day has truly begun, you gather your blankets and pillows and carry them back to the caravan. Your body is telling you it needs food and warmth and a hot shower, and you respond to these needs with care and attention, honoring your body's messages in the way the garden has taught you. You make coffee and breakfast, you shower and dress, you pack your belongings slowly and methodically. You move through these tasks without rush, savoring each one, knowing these are your last hours in this sanctuary. Before you leave, you cut lavender from the garden as Margaret suggested, gathering enough to fill a small basket. The scent is intense and beautiful, and you know that whenever you smell it in the future, you'll be transported back to this place, these days, this profound experience of rest. You do one final walk around the garden, saying goodbye to each area. The pond, the herb garden, the meditation grove, the stream walk, the rose walk, the orchard, the wildflower meadow, the folly, the hillock with its viewing bench. You thank each space silently for what it has offered, for what it has allowed you to remember and restore. Back at the caravan, you do a final check to make sure you haven't forgotten anything. You wash and put away the last dishes. You strip the bed and leave the linens in the basket Margaret indicated. You make sure everything is tidy and clean, wanting to leave the space as beautiful as you found it. Finally, there's nothing left to do but leave the key on the counter and walk out the door. You pause at the threshold, looking back one last time at the interior of the caravan that has been your home and sanctuary for these past days. So much has happened here, so much internal shifting and healing and restoration. This small space has held you while you did the deep work of resting, and you feel grateful to it, to the walls and roof and windows, to the bed and the bench seat and the little kitchen. Thank you, you whisper to the empty caravan. Then you step outside, close the door gently behind you, and walk to your car. Your luggage goes in the back, the basket of lavender on the passenger seat where you can smell it as you drive. You get behind the wheel and start the engine, and for a moment you just sit there, looking out at the garden one last time. It's still beautiful, still peaceful, still holding its magic. But you realize Margaret was right. The magic isn't just in the garden. It's in you now too. You're taking it with you, this knowledge of how to rest, how to be present, how to slow down, how to honor your needs and your body and your soul. You drive slowly along the gravel path, out through the tunnel of greenery to the wooden gate. You get out and open it, drive through, close it carefully behind you. On the other side of the gate is the stone wall, the narrow lane, and beyond that, the wider world. You turn onto the lane and drive away, watching the garden sanctuary disappear in your rearview mirror. A part of you is sad to be leaving, but a larger part of you feels full, grateful, restored, and ready. Ready to return to your life, yes, but not as the person who left it. You're returning changed, carrying with you the gifts the garden has offered, the knowledge of how to rest, the memory of peace, the understanding that you can access stillness and presence anywhere, anytime, simply by remembering. The lavender scent fills the car, and you breathe it deeply, letting it anchor you to these past days, to everything you've experienced and learned and remembered. The road ahead curves and winds, leading you back toward your regular life. But you drive without urgency, maintaining the slower pace the garden has taught you. There's no rush. You have time. You will always have time, as long as you remember to claim it, to protect it, to honor it as the sacred gift it is. And as you drive, the garden sanctuary recedes behind you, but also stays with you, held in your memory and your body. A place you can return to any time you close your eyes and remember. The sound of rain on the caravan roof, the sight of stars wheeling overhead, the scent of lavender and herbs, the feel of soft blankets and warm tea, the profound peace of deep rest. You carry it all with you now, this experience, this gift, this reminder of what's possible when you give yourself permission to truly rest. And you know, with absolute certainty, that you will return someday when you need it again, when you're ready for another chapter of restoration. But for now, you drive on, grateful and restored, carrying the garden's peace within you like a candle flame that will continue to burn bright, guiding you home to yourself again and again, as many times as you need for the rest of your life. The end. Sleep well, dear listener. May your rest be deep and your dreams be peaceful. May you wake refreshed and renewed, carrying your own inner garden sanctuary with you wherever you go. But wait, let me take you back, just for a moment, to something that happened during your time in the garden sanctuary that we haven't fully explored yet. Let me tell you about the dreams you had during those nights of deep sleep, because dreams are important, and the dreams you had in the caravan were unlike any you'd experienced before. On that first night, after you fell asleep to the sound of rain drumming on the caravan roof, you dreamed you were walking through a garden much larger than the one surrounding the caravan. This dream garden stretched on for miles in every direction, and you were walking along a path that seemed to know where it was going even if you didn't. The plants in this dream garden were familiar and strange at the same time. You recognized roses and lavender and herbs, but they were somehow more themselves than in waking life, their colors more saturated, their scents more intense, their presence more immediate. The roses were the size of dinner plates, the lavender spikes as tall as cornstalks. The herbs grew in clouds of fragrance that you could see as well as smell, like colored mist hanging in the air. As you walked, you became aware that you weren't alone. Other dreamers were walking other paths through the garden, though you could only catch glimpses of them through the foliage. A flash of movement here, a figure disappearing around a corner there, the sound of footsteps on gravel echoing from some distant path. You wanted to call out to them, to make contact, but something told you that wasn't how it worked here. Each dreamer had their own path, their own journey, and the gardens respected that solitude even as they held everyone together in the same shared space. You came to a clearing where a fountain stood, water flowing from the mouth of a stone lion into a circular basin. The water was perfectly clear, and when you looked into it, you saw not your reflection, but images, moments from your life, playing out like scenes in a film. Some were memories you recognized. Others seemed to be from a life you hadn't lived, but somehow remembered anyway. You watched for what felt like hours, seeing yourself at different ages, in different places, always searching for something, always moving forward, but never quite arriving. And then the images shifted, and you saw yourself in the future, or possible futures, plural, branching like the paths through the garden. In some of them, you looked peaceful and content. In others, you looked tired and lost. You understood, with dream logic, that which future you inhabited depended entirely on choices you hadn't made yet. Choices about how to live, how to rest, how to honor what you needed rather than what was expected. The fountain's water began to glow with golden light, and you cupped your hands and drank from it. The water tasted like nothing and everything, clear and pure, and somehow containing all flavors simultaneously. As you drank, you felt something shift inside you, some hard place beginning to soften, some frozen place beginning to thaw. You woke from that dream feeling changed, though you couldn't have said exactly how. The rain was still falling. The caravan was still dark and cozy, and you fell back asleep within minutes. But something had shifted during that dream journey. Some internal recalibration had begun. The second night, when the rain had gentled into mist, and you fell asleep feeling deeply relaxed after your long bath, you dreamed of water. You were swimming in an ocean that was perfectly warm and perfectly calm, floating on your back and looking up at a sky full of stars. The stars were reflected in the water's surface, so you were surrounded by stars above and below, suspended in a universe of light. As you floated, you became aware that you were dissolving, your boundaries becoming less distinct, your sense of where you ended, and the water began growing fuzzy and indistinct. This should have been frightening, but it wasn't. It felt like release, like letting go of something you'd been holding too tightly for too long. You surrendered to the dissolution, allowing yourself to become part of the water, part of the stars, part of the vast, interconnected whole. And in that surrender, you found a peace so profound it was almost painful in its intensity. You understood, in that moment, that you'd been working so hard to maintain your boundaries, to keep yourself separate and distinct, to protect yourself from being overwhelmed by the world. And all that work was exhausting. What if you could be both? Both distinct and connected, both individual and part of the whole. What if the boundaries didn't have to be walls, but could be more like membranes, allowing flow in both directions. The dream shifted, and you were standing in the meditation grove, though it was night, and the birch trees were glowing with their own gentle phosphorescence. The moss beneath your feet was luminous too, green gold and soft as velvet. You sat on the central stone, and roots began to grow from your body, reaching down into the earth, anchoring you, connecting you to the vast network of life beneath the surface. You could feel it all: the mycorrhizal networks connecting tree roots, the underground streams flowing through stone, the sleeping seeds waiting for spring, the worms and beetles, and all the hidden life of the soil. You were part of it, connected to it, and the connection didn't diminish you, but expanded you, made you larger and more complete than you'd ever been. When you woke from this dream, you lay in the darkness for a long time, feeling the truth of it settling into your body. You were connected to everything, always had been, always would be. The isolation you felt in your regular life was an illusion, a trick of perception brought on by stress and disconnection. But the truth was connection, and you could choose to remember that, to feel it, to live from that knowing. The third night, after your day of exploration and the clear evening of stars, you dreamed of flight. You were a bird, though you retained your human consciousness, and you were flying over the garden sanctuary, seeing it from above in a way you never had while awake. From this aerial perspective, you could see patterns you'd missed from the ground. The paths through the garden formed a kind of mandala, radiating out from the central clearing where the caravan sat by its pond. Each area of the garden was positioned deliberately, creating a balance of elements: water and earth, sun and shade, wild and cultivated, open and enclosed. You flew higher, and the garden sanctuary became smaller, one patch of green in a landscape of fields and forests and villages. But even from this height, you could see that it glowed somehow, emanating a quality of peace and welcome that made it distinct from the surrounding landscape. You understood, with bird knowledge, that places like this were essential, that they served as refuges not just for humans, but for all creatures, that they held space for wildness and rest in a world increasingly dominated by human busyness and noise. You flew even higher until you could see the curve of the earth, the thin blue line of the atmosphere, the stars beyond. From this cosmic perspective, everything looked different. The concerns and worries that had brought you to the garden sanctuary seemed impossibly small, barely visible from this height. What mattered was the great turning of the earth, the cycles of light and dark, the seasons rolling one into another, the vast patient processes of growth and decay and renewal. You were falling now, or maybe flying down, diving through layers of clouds back toward the earth. You could see the garden growing larger, could pick out individual trees, could see the glint of water in the pond. You were heading for the caravan, diving faster and faster, and just before you would have crashed into it, you woke up. Your heart was pounding from the sensation of falling, but you were safe in your bed, wrapped in soft sheets, the caravan solid and real around you. Through the window, you could see the stars you'd just been flying among, and you felt a sense of connection to them, to the vast scale of things that you'd never felt before. The fourth night, your last night in the garden, you didn't dream at all, or if you did, you didn't remember. You slept under the stars, and your sleep was so deep and complete that it was like falling into a well of pure darkness, restful and restorative beyond measure. But now, as you drive away from the garden sanctuary, with the scent of lavender filling your car, you find yourself thinking about those dreams, understanding that they were part of the healing process, part of what the garden offered. The dreams had shown you truths about yourself and your life that your waking mind was too defended to fully acknowledge. The dream of the fountain had shown you that your future wasn't fixed, that you had choices, that rest and self-care weren't selfish, but essential. The dream of the ocean had shown you that connection was possible without losing yourself, that you could be part of something larger without being overwhelmed. The dream of flight had given you perspective, helping you see both the details and the big picture, both the particular and the universal. You drive on, the landscape rolling past, and you realize you're not in a hurry to get home. In fact, you're enjoying the drive itself, the way the road curves and dips, the changing scenery, the play of light on the fields and hills. This is new too, this ability to be present with what is rather than always rushing toward what's next. You decide to take the scenic route, adding an extra hour to your journey, but gaining that hour as lived experience, as presence, as beauty witnessed and enjoyed. You drive through small villages with stone churches and thatched cottages. You pass through forests where the trees arch over the road, creating tunnels of green. You follow rivers and climb hills and descend into valleys. At one point, you pull over at a viewpoint and get out of the car, standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a landscape of rolling hills extending to the horizon. The wind is strong here, and it whips your hair around your face and fills your lungs with fresh air. You stand there for a long time, just looking, just breathing, just being present with the vastness and beauty of the world. This is what the garden taught you, you think. Not to hide from the world, but to be present with it, to meet it with openness and attention rather than anxiety and hurry. A family arrives at the viewpoint, parents and 2 children, and they spread out a blanket and unpack a picnic. You watch them for a moment, smiling at the children's excitement, the parents' patient attention, and you feel a surge of tenderness for all of humanity, for all of us trying to find moments of peace and connection in our busy lives. You get back in your car and continue driving, and as the miles pass, you start to think about your return home. You've been away for only 4 days, but it feels like much longer. You wonder what you'll find when you get there, whether your house will feel like home or like a place you've outgrown. You wonder how you'll integrate this experience into your daily life. It's one thing to rest and slow down when you're in a garden sanctuary with no obligations and no schedule. It's another thing entirely to maintain that spaciousness when you're back in the world of work and responsibilities and demands on your time. But you have tools now, you remind yourself. You have the memory of the garden to return to in your mind. You have the lavender to remind you. You have the experience in your body of what deep rest feels like, what presence feels like, what peace feels like. You can't recreate the entire experience of the garden sanctuary in your daily life, but you can bring elements of it, practices, and attitudes, and ways of being. You can start each day with a few minutes of silence, of presence, before diving into activity. You can take regular breaks throughout the day to breathe deeply and notice your surroundings. You can prioritize rest, treating it as essential rather than optional. You can spend time in nature, even if it's just a local park or your own backyard. You can practice saying no to things that drain you and yes to things that restore you. These seem like small things, but you understand now that transformation doesn't require grand gestures. It happens through accumulation of small choices, daily practices, gradual shifts in how you relate to yourself and the world. The landscape is becoming more familiar now. You're getting closer to home, entering areas you recognize. The villages have names you know. The landmarks are ones you've seen before. Part of you wishes you could keep driving indefinitely, postponing the return, maintaining this liminal state between the garden and your regular life. But another part of you is curious, even eager, to see if you can maintain what you found, if you can live differently, if the changes that feel so real right now will prove to be lasting, or will fade like dreams in the harsh light of daily demands. You pass the turnoff to your street and keep driving, not ready to arrive quite yet. You find yourself heading toward a park you know, a place with walking trails and a small lake. You park and get out, taking the basket of lavender with you, and you walk down to the water's edge. The lake is peaceful, its surface ruffled by a gentle breeze. Ducks paddle near the shore, and you watch them for a while, reminded of the ducks you saw on the pond at the garden sanctuary. This park isn't as wild or as beautiful as the garden, but it has its own charm, its own peace. You sit on a bench and close your eyes, breathing deeply, and you practice what the garden taught you, being present, right here, right now, not wishing you were somewhere else or someone else, but accepting what is. The sounds of the park surround you. Children playing on the playground, dogs barking, joggers passing by, the rustle of leaves in the trees. It's busier and noisier than the garden sanctuary, but you find you can be present with it, can let the sounds wash over you without resistance or judgment. This is life, you think. Not always quiet, not always peaceful, but still rich with beauty if you pay attention. The garden sanctuary was a gift, a concentrated dose of rest and renewal. But real life is here, in parks and streets and ordinary days. The challenge is to bring the garden's wisdom into this ordinary life, to to remember that peace is possible anywhere, anytime, if you create the conditions for it. You sit on the bench until the sun begins to set. Then you walk slowly back to your car. The lavender scent greets you when you open the door, and you breathe it deeply before starting the engine. The drive home takes only 10 minutes, and then you're pulling into your driveway, turning off the engine, sitting for a moment looking at your house. It looks the same as when you left, but you're different, and that difference changes everything. You carry your luggage inside, the lavender basket, your backpack. The house is quiet and still, waiting for you to bring it back to life. You move through the rooms, opening windows to let in fresh air, turning on lights, reacquainting yourself with your space. It feels both familiar and strange, like returning to a place you knew well once, but haven't visited in years. You notice things you never paid attention to before: how cluttered some areas are, how the light falls through the windows at different times of day, how the sounds from outside filter in. You unpack slowly, putting things away, and when you come to the lavender basket, you pause. You take several sprigs and place them throughout your house, one by your bed, one in the bathroom, one in the kitchen, one by the front door. Each placement is deliberate, creating small stations of remembrance, places where the scent will trigger memories of the garden and everything it taught you. You make yourself a simple dinner and eat it at your kitchen table, not rushing, actually tasting the food, practicing the mindfulness the garden helped you rediscover. After dinner, you wash the dishes by hand instead of loading the dishwasher, finding a kind of meditation in the simple act of cleaning. As evening deepens into night, you prepare for bed, going through your routine, but bringing more attention to it than you usually do. You brush your teeth slowly, wash your face mindfully, change into comfortable sleepwear with gratitude for having soft clothes and a warm house. Before getting into bed, you stand at your bedroom window and look out at the night sky. You can't see as many stars here as you could at the garden. The light pollution obscures most of them, but you can see the moon and the brightest stars, and that's enough. You remember lying under the stars at the garden sanctuary. Remember the sense of connection and peace you felt, and you call that memory forward now, letting it fill you, letting it remind you that this peace is always available, always accessible, if you remember to look for it. You climb into your own bed, and it feels different than the bed in the caravan, but still good, still comfortable. You arrange your pillows, pull up your duvet, and lie there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of your neighborhood. Distant traffic, a dog barking, wind in the trees outside your window. These sounds are different from the garden sounds, but you practice accepting them rather than resisting them, letting them be part of your experience rather than intrusions into it. Your body relaxes into the familiar mattress, and you feel grateful for this bed, this room, this house, this life. It's not perfect, it's not the garden sanctuary, but it's yours, and you're returning to it as a different person, someone who knows how to rest, how to slow down, how to honor what you need. As you lie there, drifting towards sleep, images from the garden float through your mind. Rain falling on the caravan roof, mist rising from the pond, roses opening in the sunshine, the birch trees in the meditation grove, the stream tumbling over stones, stars wheeling overhead. These images will fade over time, you know. Memories always do, losing their sharp edges, becoming softer and less distinct. But the essence will remain, the feeling of deep rest, the knowledge of peace, the understanding that you have choices about how to live, how to be, how to honor your needs and your soul. You're home now, back in your regular life, but you're not the same person who left. You've been changed by the garden, transformed by rest, renewed by beauty and silence and rain. And while the intensity of this transformation will inevitably fade as you return to your routines and responsibilities, something essential will remain. You'll remember. In moments of stress, you'll remember the garden. In moments of hurry, you'll remember the slow pace of healing. In moments of disconnection, you'll remember the feeling of being part of something larger. And those memories will guide you, helping you make different choices, creating small sanctuaries of rest and peace in the midst of your busy life. The lavender on your bedside table releases its calming scent, and you breathe it deeply, letting it carry you back to the garden one more time before sleep claims you. You see the caravan in your mind's eye, cozy and warm, surrounded by rain-wet plants and the gentle sounds of water. You feel yourself there, safe and peaceful, and from that place of peace, you drift into sleep. Your dreams that night are gentle and restorative, though you won't remember them in the morning. You'll wake refreshed, ready to meet your day with more presence and less hurry than before. You'll make different choices, small but significant, honoring the lessons the garden taught you. And someday, when you need it again, when the stress builds up and the disconnection becomes too much, you'll return to the garden sanctuary. You'll drive those winding country roads, open that wooden gate, see the caravan waiting for you by its pond. And the garden will welcome you back, offering again what it always offers: time, space, beauty, and the profound gift of rest. But that's someday. Tonight, you sleep in your own bed, in your own house, in your own life, and it's exactly where you need to be. The garden has given you what you needed, and now you're integrating that gift, bringing it into your daily existence, learning how to be both in the world and at peace. Sleep comes easily, deeply, naturally. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your body releases its remaining tension. Your mind quiets and stills, and you sleep peacefully and well, held by the memory of the garden, carried by the lessons of rest, dreaming dreams of rain and roses, and the gentle sound of water flowing over stones. The garden sanctuary exists now in two places. In that hidden spot behind the stone wall, where the caravan sits by its pond, and Margaret tends her plants with love and attention. And inside you, in your memory and your body, in the cells and synapses that hold your experience. You carry the garden with you now, wherever you go. It's in the way you breathe when you're stressed. It's in the pause you take before responding to demands. It's in the way you notice beauty in ordinary moments. It's in your commitment to rest as a sacred practice. It's in your understanding that peace is possible, that healing happens, that you can return to yourself again and again, as many times as you need. And so you sleep deeply and peacefully, and the garden sleeps too, the rain falling gently on its paths and plants, the frogs calling from the pond, the owl hunting in the moonlight, everything turning in its cycles, everything following its rhythms, everything resting and growing, and being exactly what it needs to be. And in the morning, you'll wake to a new day, carrying the garden's gifts forward, living a little more slowly, resting a little more deeply, present a little more fully to the beauty and wonder of this precious, ordinary, extraordinary life. Sleep well, dear listener. May the garden sanctuary live in your heart. May you find rest whenever you need it. May you remember that peace is always possible, always accessible, always waiting for you to claim it. May you wake refreshed and renewed, ready to meet your life with presence and grace. And may you always remember you are worthy of rest. You deserve peace. You are allowed to slow down, to take care of yourself, to honor your needs. This isn't selfish, it's essential. This isn't indulgent, it's necessary. This is how you sustain yourself for the long journey of life. The garden sanctuary taught you this truth, and now you carry it with you. A seed planted deep in your heart, ready to grow into whatever you need it to be. A memory, a practice, a way of being, a path home to yourself. Rest now, sleep deeply, dream peacefully. The garden holds you still, even from a distance, even across miles and days. You are held, you are safe, you are loved, you are enough. Good night, sleep well. May your rest be deep and your dreams be sweet. May you wake tomorrow renewed and ready, carrying the garden's peace with you into your day and all your days to come. The rain falls softly in the garden. The frogs sing their ancient songs. The owl flies silently through the night. And you sleep peacefully and well, held by the earth, embraced by the darkness, dreaming dreams of rain and roses, and the gentle, endless gift of rest. Good night, sleep well, rest deeply. Peace be with you now and always, in the garden sanctuary of your heart, where it's always raining gently, and you're always safe and warm and perfectly at peace. Sleep now, just sleep. Let everything go. Release into rest. Surrender to peace. You are exactly where you need to be. Everything is exactly as it should be. Rest now. Sleep, peace, quiet, stillness, rest. Good night.